Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keane. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out, www.thebestdampodcast.tv. Follow me, Instagram, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and wherever you're watching from, please make sure to hit the like, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and share this link. Get it out there far and wide. And don't forget, guys, to follow on all the platforms. Subscribe here on YouTube and click that bell. That way you guys can get all of the notifications. And keep in mind, we are completely viewer powered. That means we're fully funded and supported by you, the listener and the viewer. We are at the start of a new month, and this is the time, well, the bills are due, so this is when we ask everyone to please, step up, help us out, donate, support, help keep this stuff going. And you know what? As a bonus for those who do support, you can get access to our private and uncensored content. We do weekly private shows over on the Best Damn Podcast Discord, which it's free to join for everybody that's interested as well. And, on Patreon, you get free merch and all kinds of cool stuff when you join. And if you're not into a monthly pledge, you just text 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com, and I will send you the link to that Dropbox. So I tried to go live already, and when I went live, they kicked me off before I could even get shit started. So we're going to go ahead and say that maybe this might be a touchy subject. I wonder if it's because how close all of this appears to be. I do want to thank all of you guys in the chat. Make sure to hit that like for me. Shelly Philippi, Karen Wager, Mel O. Thank you guys. Big ups to everybody. Let's go ahead and jump into it, and this is Return of Planet X Part 2. So we're going to be talking about the Nemesis system. Prophetically, we're going to be looking at a little bit of Nostradamus tonight. We're going to be looking also at some Immanuel Velikovsky, Earth and Upheaval, a little bit different than some of the things we've looked at in the past. We're going to also take a peek into the Colburn Bible, as well as look at a little bit of Sitchin, and I've got a lot more pertaining to the things that are taking place right now that coincide with Planet X, Planet 9, Wormwood, Nibiru, whatever you want to call this thing, the dragon. It's been prophetically, told to us for a long time that at the end of each cycle there is a large comet or a protoplanet, a binary twin of our sun that makes a pass right across the Earth, and it has catastrophic results. Not only does this passing, this planet of the crossing, this transitional planet, have a direct effect on human consciousness, it appears to make people act wonky as fuck whenever it goes by. Could it be, the iron and the way that, our red blood cells react to this stuff? Could it be, the ionized tail of a large comet and just the sheer electromagnetic field, like the volume and velocity and power of something as big as an object like this, and what it would do to a person's brain as it goes by? I mean, you look into the Colburn, it talks about when they came down from the mountains after the passing of this thing, they forgot their gods, their guides, and everything. Like, this is a type of energy that, and you guys will remember the CIA whistleblower. I played the video before, years ago, talked about this thing where you could see it was just a red dot out in space. He said that people would need a lead helmet to be able to withstand the electromagnetism from this thing as it actually passed by, that you would forget your name and basically piss your pants. That's something intense right there if you think about it. And our brains do fire on, electrical synapses. Matter of fact, we're electrical beings, and as this thing approaches, if you can look at our solar system as a whole, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter and look at Mars and how it appears to be like a dead planet. Many people, scientists included, believe that Mars used to be Earth-like, and something happened that caused it to lose its atmosphere. And now it's, a red dust ball. Got a lot of iron, a lot of carbon dioxide. Like, why is that? Could it be that Nemesis, or this planet, is what actually ripped the atmosphere off of that thing and took the life right off of Mars? There's many books, including the Lost Book of Enki and other books, ancient texts and cultures that talk about Mars was a way station between the planet Nibiru and Earth for the Anunnaki gods. And I'm using my quotation fingers. You just can't see me. Right? And I say gods loosely because one could say that they're extraterrestrials. One could say that they're fallen angels. One could say that they're angels. I mean, it's all really up to you, and how you perceive it. But they are known and associated with this planet as well, the return of the gods, And you look at the Bible, and what's it talk about in Revelation when a third of the earth is burned up, a third of the green grass is burned up, which many believe is the tail of this system going across the planet, burning everything up, or the star named Wormwood. And I've told you guys that, wormwood, Chernobyl actually means wormwood, so this is something radiated, right? Bitter, poisoned, radiation, right? And that the star falls into the oceans, poisoning all the water, killing all the aquatic life, that all the people who drink the water get poisoned and sick and die too. And it even talks about sores appearing on everyone's skin at the time this thing gets close. And if we look at the Cobram, which we will tonight, we're going to look at some of that. I'm going to show you, we're going to actually go a little bit past the 3 chapters on the destroyer. I'm going to show you the after effects tonight of what happened in ancient Egypt after this thing went past. And you'll see the Egyptian perspective of who I believe, is Moses, is Akhenaten. And as he's scrambling, and this is kind of like the story of parting the Red Seas, right? And what actually happened to, the wildlife and the earth and people's skin and all of this. And they say there is nothing new under the sun, that this will come again, and that only the wise, right, those that are wise, know of its passing and know of its return. So if you're hip to this now, then maybe you can include yourself amongst the wise. So let's take a look at some of the things that are actually happening right now that I believe are direct connections to this. Earth's days have been mysteriously increasing in length. Scientists don't know why. Precise astronomical observations combined with atomic clocks have revealed that the length of a day is suddenly getting longer. Scientists don't know why. This has critical impacts not just on our timekeeping, but also on things like GPS and other precision technologies that govern our modern life. Earth's rotation around its axis has been speeding up over the past few decades. Since this determines how long a day is, this trend has been making our days shorter. In fact, in June 2022, we set a record for the shortest day in the last half a century or so. However, despite this record since 2020, that steady speed up has curiously switched to a slowdown. Now days are getting longer again, and the reason so far remains a mystery. And remember, prophetically speaking, what's it say? It says that a third of the day will become night, and a third of the night will become day, and it talks about the changing of the days and times, and if the days weren't shortened, that no flesh would survive. And that's in the Bible. While the clocks in our phones indicate that there are exactly 24 hours in a day, the actual time it takes for Earth to complete a single rotation can vary ever so slightly. These changes sometimes occur over periods of millions of years, and other times almost instantly. For example, even earthquakes and storm events can play a role. It turns out that a day is very rarely exactly the magic number of 36,400 seconds, Earth's rotation has been slowing down over millions of years due to friction effects associated with tides driven by the moon. And that's just their speculation. These friction effects could also be from a large magnetic object that's either attracted to or repelling the magnetic poles of the earth. And I've shown you guys, and I'll show you tonight, how the magnetic north has split into two, magnetic south has split into two, and we are, very close to a full-on magnetic reversal, in that the new magnetic north will be in Siberia, and that there is a South Atlantic anomaly, which is a magnetic anomaly of negative polarity in the Atlantic Ocean, right? So, just saying, something is leaving a mark on the earth, something is affecting the poles, and we also know that our sun, as it shifts into its different cycles, minimum and maximum, which it's going into a maximum, we're seeing, almost hyperactivity right now. It's highly reactive with plasma that's being ejected from it, these coronal mass ejections and solar flares. These are not all just driven within the sun itself. If there was something that was passing or in close proximity, it would actually have a magnetic reaction with our star and pull more and more material or plasma out of the sun, creating or triggering more of those CMEs, more of those solar flares and those ejections, right? And I think that that's actually what's going on. I mean, we've seen photo after photo, picture after picture that actually depicts different objects around our star, and we know that if you look at SOHO, SETI, SDO, half of the images where anything is actually taking place in stereo, they black it out, they black it out or cut out part of the image or pixelate the hell out of it. That way you can't actually see. And many people have caught a lot of anomalies on there as well, including myself, and I've shown them a lot over the years. But this in itself, and they're even showing studies now that are talking about large asteroids that are coming from behind the sun, and these large celestial bodies have a direct effect on our star as well, triggering these mass ejections. And as our star goes into maximum and is just blasting off all of this plasma and cosmic rays and radiation, it affects the Earth's magnetic field, right? Causes fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field, and that magnetic field is our protection from cosmic rays and radiation within space. Okay, so if there's an anomaly on the magnetic field that is repelling the poles in another direction, the sun is being triggered, acting a damn fool, basically, as it's blasting off X flares, cannibal flares, I mean, you name it, right? Different things and anomalies with the sun, including the fact that NASA did a study just like a year or so ago saying that the amount of solar wind and radiation didn't even account for our star. Like, there was more radiation and more solar wind than what our sun could actually generate. So that would mean something else was contributing to that as well, right? The magnetic field goes into this flux, and people can say it's HARP and all of this, but something's happening externally too. I don't think there's a doubt about that. And that's why we're seeing all of these crazy auroras, because those are gases that are heated from crustal displacement. So the more the radiation, the more of the energy that comes through the magnetic field, it goes down into the earth. And not only does it affect humans, and think about radiation poisoning and shit like that, too much UV, which we know UV is at all-time highs. Radiation that was once in the upper atmosphere is now down on ground level, right? So we have all of this radiation that would actually be, one cause of people having sores and blisters and stuff on their skin. Hint, hint, the monkey stuff that's going on right now. No monkeying around, right? Just saying. That's a possibility, and I even predicted that this would be happening within this year or so, that people would begin to get blisters and sores and all of that, and that they would probably try to attribute that to something else. But it could be from radiation from the shift in the magnetic field. And we know that it's extremely close to that 40-degree point. And at 40 degrees is where magnetics scientifically break down and they reverse polarity. Okay, so we're really close to all of that. And you look at climate change, like I said, the auroras, these amazing auroras of purples and pinks and reds and yellows. These are all different heated gases that are escaping out of Earth's crust, that are coming up from underneath, right? Because that energy, as it goes down through the magnetic field into the Earth, I believe the Earth has a plasma core. It's concentrated and reverberates back outward, the same principle that HAARP actually uses, creating plasmatic waves that flow underneath the crust. And as it heats and creates all of this energy, that energy has to expand and it has to release, right? So that creates the expansion of Earth's crust, cracks, sinkholes, and I show you guys these sinkholes and all of this all the time. Right, from the expansion, and those gases come out, the sulfur, the methane, the carbon, and all of that, and they get trapped at the top of the ionosphere, and you see them light up in the form of auroras, and they create greenhouse gas effects, essentially trapping more and more of the radiation and stuff in, and weakening the field, allowing more of the bad shit in, too. So, I mean, it's like a double whammy, right, as a result of this. And as it comes up as well, this affects, and we know this, there's been a tremendous or an exponential amount of plane crashes due to electrical failure, right? Or planes just all of a sudden, they cancel bunches and bunches of flights everywhere. And a lot of people want to attribute that to fifth generation technology, but that would also have something to do with the magnetic field. Right? If you're up in the atmosphere like that and you have all these gyroscopes and shit that actually work off of magnetism and electricity, well, the planes are going to crash if the magnetic field is thin and there's a solar storm, a geomagnetic storm taking place, or lots of different radiation and interference. And we've seen this massive amounts of plane crashes that have happened as a result of electrical equipment failure over the last couple of years. Not to mention all of that energy, the best way for it to escape in the process of crustal displacement is through the Earth's fault lines, right? So that's why you see all of the volcanic activity and the seismic activity, because those are kind of the escape points for this energy to release. And once it gets up into the upper atmosphere, it then becomes cyclonic, because then it's just charged air particles mixed with precipitation. And this is how you get, bomb cyclones, tropical cyclones, hurricanes. We've never seen hurricanes and all of that like we have now, or even tornadoes, right? So, and this can create concentrated amounts of weather, as it's also altering the way that the current flows off of the ocean, and the way that the currents of air flow across the planet as a whole, warming up glacial ice, melting glacial ice, which is also attributing to massive amounts of precipitation, causing monsoons and torrential flooding and rain. As these things take place and crustal displacement continues to increase, we see mudslides, landslides, laharas, all of these things, and every one of them honestly have, they come from the same cause, right? And that's why I think Planet X, Planet 9, Nemesis, Nibiru, whatever, is the mother of all conspiracies, because it explains everything. It explains it all as a whole. And I told you guys that WW3 would be the cover-up for this. And how do we know? Because we have prophecies that say so, right? It talks about in the Bible that, when these meteors come down, that all of the ships would be destroyed, saying that there are ships out at sea, a bunch of ships out at sea, like in wartime. All the generals and all of that hide in the mountains of the earth, the important people. Nostradamus talks about that there would be a war at sea before the meteors started raining down. And we're even warned about DART, which is a double asteroid redirection test, which next month is supposed to actually make impact He talked about when the dart will run or when the comet will run across the sky. And we've seen, and you can call it coincidence if you want, but, C19Y1, Y4, Comet Atlas, 2 days before COVID-19. Then one of the main key ingredients in all of this, the Luciferos A1. And then we had Comet Leonard, the Christmas comet, which bounced off of Venus as it went past. Its tail actually passed through Venus, and it was, A1, Leonard, A1, right? It's like right on these days. And then September 23rd, 2017, the great sign in heaven. And I'm going to show you two in the Bible. This is, we've had these timelines quite a bit now. Here, let's go back. See, there's your magnetic poles right there. This is a flood map of what the United States would look like after magnetic reversal or incredible sea level rise. And remember in the Lost Book of Inky, when the Doomsday Glacier gave way, which it's been predicted just within the last week that we've got a bunch of warm water that's actually supposed to hit some of the last glacial ice that we have that could be enough to just cut it loose. It sends a large tsunami across the earth. And that's when the Anunnaki, that was their cue to actually get out of Dodge. Okay? Right there. September 23rd, 2017. And there appeared a wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars, and she being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there it is, the crown of 12 stars, the constellation of Leo, right? The lion of the tribe of Judah, right? Or, the king, Leo. And then in conjunction, Mercury, Mars, and Venus. And in the constellation of Virgo, which is the woman, right? And the virgin gives birth, right, to Christ or the king. And guess who's in there? The king planet, Jupiter. Jupiter's also striped. And remember, Jesus bore our stripes, right? So, and I've talked about all of this, how I believe the two are connected. And what'd he do? He sits in there for 9 months. She was pregnant and crying out in birth pangs and the agony of giving birth. Jupiter remains in Virgo for approximately 9 months, the womb area of the constellation Virgo. And then it talks about 1,260 days later, another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon. Right? The word dragon in Hebrew means a fabulous kind of serpent. And on the exact day, March 6, 2021, asteroid 99942 Apophis happened to pass, right? Apophis is the god of chaos and darkness, depicted as a dragon or a serpent, right, in the Egyptian mythos, and is associated with every depiction of, the sun god Ra or Jupiter or whatever in the kind of end times apocalyptic depictions that they have as well. So, go figure, right, on the exact day. And when we look at all of the exercises that NASA and the world has basically ran, these hypothetical impact scenarios, which, by the way, when they did the world one, I think it was PDC 2021, 6 out of 7 of the simulated scenarios, they couldn't stop the asteroid, right? And then before they did double asteroid redirection test, they actually simulated double asteroid redirection test with Apophis, so just saying, little pieces of info right there. And then you look in the Bible, right? And you take a look at the timeline. And this shows you that this wasn't probably an every 3,600 year event like Zechariah Sitchin imagined, that this was something more akin to every 300 or 400 years it actually happened, right? It probably didn't last or probably wasn't nearly as far apart as people were told. So that would mean that everything that we know historically is not as old as we think it is either. Right? Cain, the Gihon flood in the river of 3678 BC, the earth tilted 28 degrees. Enoch, take and see, look, 323 years apart. 661 years apart. Enoch is taken 668 years apart. Noah's great flood, and the earth tilted 28 degrees south. And remember, we now see the 13th constellation of Ophiuchus. Many believe that's due to a tilt. There's also been science saying that the earth is wobbling on its axis as well. We'll get back to that in just a second. But remember, Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, says that the earth will wobble to and fro like a drunkard in the last days. The Tower of Babel, 2044 BC, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Remember, it's raining down fire. Lot's wife gets turned to a pillar of salt. Joseph of Egypt, the earth tilted 28 degrees. Exodus of Egypt, and like I said, we're going to look at the Cobra perspective of the aftermath tonight. The earth tilted 28 degrees, and that was the parting of the Red Sea, Joshua's long day. Right? This is because the earth stood still, and we see in Worlds in Collision due to Immanuel Velikovsky's work that, this happened, and, the armies were like, this is an act of God that the earth is standing still and these meteors are falling down on their enemies. And this happens time and time again in the Bible to the Israelites and, the different tribes that were fighting, on behalf of God, basically. Joshua's long day, the earth's rotation, a 12-hour delay. We're now having delays in the rotation and wobbling in the axis. Isn't that weird? Job's trouble. Ruth and Naomi. And that was 7 years later, right? David and King Saul. That was a tilting of 28 degrees as well. Jonah's Nineveh, Hezekiah's sundial, 687, 28 degrees. 185,000 killed Assyrians. Haggai's second temple, 336 BC. Yeshua, or Jesus' sacrifice. And remember, after it happened, the earth shook and went dark and stuff. So, just saying. Constantine's cross in the sky. This is what brought about Christianity to the Roman Empire. He seen the sign of the cross in the sky. Could he have seen the sign of the crossing? The Mayans' drought, 707 AD. The Chinese guest star, and this is one of the most recent ones, the Chinese guest star. And, probably one that we have the most information on as far as historical accounts. And then we're going to also, I'll probably pull it up, Book of Miracles, right, that shows from right here, 1456, 1697, the last two great conjunctions that took place. And remember, it was December 21st, 2020, that we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. And it was the first one of its kind in 800 years. Okay, so that's a long time, guys. Okay, and we had that great conjunction. So that signifies the end of the age, right? Whenever Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct. And I've shown you guys in a lot of the different mystery religions, the symbolism for that conjunction as well. And many believe that the mystery of Nibiru is actually that conjunction, that sign, that Jupiter, the striped planet, with Saturn and its rings behind it, kind of giving it the appearance of wings. Okay, and remember in ancient Babylonia that Nibiru was Jupiter. And then Revelation seals 6 and 7, right? That's where we're at now, up into 2023, and the Earth tilting 28 degrees plus the 12-hour delay in rotation. Okay, so we're coming in on all of this right now, and we're really close to all of this right now, and that's why I believe we're seeing the things that we're seeing now. And look, here's the 7-year marker. Remember that last one was 7 years apart too, the 2017 eclipse. That took place 1 month in August of 2017 before the great sign in heaven, and every time judgment is cast on a nation in the Bible, it's dark at midday. Okay? And then we look 7 years later, creating a perfect X on Babylon, or the United States of America, in 2024. All of this was preceded by... Whoops. Shit. Don't know what happened here. All of this was preceded by blood moon. They had these blood moons, these 4 sequential blood moons. Right here. Right, which was also prophesied on Passover, Sukkot, right? Adar, Nisan, Passover, and Sukkot. An alert, there will not be 4 blood moons total eclipses together again until 2032 to 2033, right? So this won't happen again until that. And the great sign in heaven has never before happened and never will happen again. And remember, the blood moon means a sword is coming. A solar eclipse is a bad omen for the world, and a lunar eclipse is a bad omen for Israel. And it says the sun is a signal to the world, and a moon is a signal to Israel. In Joel 2:10, the earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Joel 2:31, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. So there you have it, right? And let's go over here now. The Earth's rotation has been slowing down. Remember the delay. Over millions of years due to the friction effects associated with tides driven by the moon, the process adds about 2.3 milliseconds to the length of each day every 100 years. A few billion years ago, an Earth day was only about 19 hours. For the past 20,000 years, and remember, precession of the equinoxes, the 26,000-year cycles, and the great year, right, the great cycles, another process has been working in the opposite direction, speeding up Earth's rotation. When the last ice age ended, melting polar ice sheets reduced surface pressure, and Earth's mantle started steadily moving towards the poles, like what's happening now, right? Glacial ice sheets, right? Melting, reducing pressure, and what's happening? Earth is, its mantle is starting to move. Crustal displacement. Just as a ballet dancer spins faster as they bring their arms toward their body, the axis around which they spin, our planet's spin rate, increases when the mass of the mantle moves closer to Earth's axis. This process has been shortening each day by about 0.6 milliseconds each century. Over decades and longer, the connection between Earth's interior and surface comes into play too. Major earthquakes can change the length of a day, although normally by small amounts. For example, the Great Tohoku earthquake of 2011 in Japan, with a magnitude of 8.9, is believed to have sped up Earth's rotation by relatively tiny 1.8 microseconds. Apart from these large-scale changes over shorter periods, weather and climate has also been important impacts on Earth's rotation, causing variations in both directions. The fortnightly and monthly tidal cycles move mass around the planet, causing changes in the length of day by up to a millisecond in either direction. We can see tidal variations in length of day records over periods as long as 18.6 years. The movement of our atmosphere has particularly strong effect, and ocean currents also play a role. Seasonal snow cover and rainfall or groundwater extraction after things further. Why is Earth suddenly slowing down? Since the 60s, when operators of radio telescopes around the planet started to devise techniques to simultaneously observe cosmic objects like quasars, we have had a very precise estimate of Earth's rate of rotation. And remember, they talk about how, Planet X is, like a quasar or a pulsar. That it has so much energy coming out of it. It's like pulsing out of the poles of it, right? And that's why you have such intense electromagnetism. A comparison between these measurements of an atomic clock have revealed a seemingly ever-shortening length of day over the past few years. But there's a surprising reveal. Once we take away the rotation speed fluctuations, we know what happens due to the tides and seasonal effects. Despite Earth reaching its shortest day on June 29, 2022, the long-term trajectory seems to have shifted from shortening to lengthening since 2020. This changed 50 years. The reason for this change is not clear. It could be due to changes in weather systems with back-to-back La Nina events, although these have occurred before. It could be increased melting of the ice sheets, although these have not deviated hugely from their steady rate of melt in recent years. Could it be related to huge volcano explosion in Tonga, injecting huge amounts of water into the atmosphere? Probably not, given that occurred in January of 2022. Scientists have speculated this recent mysterious change in the planet's rotational speed is related to a phenomenon called Chandler wobble. A small deviation in Earth's rotation axis with a period of about 430 days. Observations from radio telescope also show that the wobble has diminished in recent years. Perhaps the two are linked. One final possibility which we think is plausible is that nothing specific has changed inside or around Earth. It could just be a long-term tidal effect working in parallel with other periodic processes to produce a temporary change in Earth's rotation rate. And they say, do we need a negative leap second? Precisely understanding Earth's rotation is crucial for a host of applications. Navigation systems, such as GPS, wouldn't work without it. Also, every few year timekeepers insert leap seconds into artificial timescales to make sure they don't drift out of sync with our planet. If Earth were to shift to even longer days, we may need to incorporate a negative leap second. This would be unprecedented and may break the internet. A negative leap second, and think about it, because it's going in the wrong direction. Negative polarity. Remember, the need for the negative leap second is regarded as unlikely right now. For now, we can welcome the news that at least for a while, we have a few extra milliseconds each day. And I just want you to think about this too, that they have had to adjust the GPS on the Earth. If you remember, it was like a year ahead of time. The last time they had to do it back in 2018. It was supposed to be adjusted like a year later, and they actually had to move the timetable up to adjust that shit even earlier. So that kind of lets you know something right there. You know, if shit's being moved ahead of schedule, then why is that? Okay? And I don't want to pound you with this, but I do want to remind you that this is a part of things, okay? Right? So, nuclear war, to me, remember, it talks about, Nostradamus talks about, nations will rise and fall, right? Mountain thrown into the sea, causing nations to rise and fall. The Bible, it talks about this as well. And if you think about all of the different predictive programming of the sudden impact and showing New York City underwater on the back of the tin and $100 bills and all of that, nuclear war would be the perfect cover-up for asteroid impact. Okay? If an asteroid were to actually hit, especially in the ocean. And remember, there is technology allegedly by Russia that can create tidal waves, right off the coast from nuclear weapons. If it were to actually hit, it would incinerate all of the water in that immediate area, right, by its impact and speed. If it was a large one, there'd be no water. It'd push it all away and vaporize whatever was there, right? It would probably hit us hard enough to shift tectonic plates and maybe be what, triggered a full-on, pole shift where all the continents began to shift, right? But as a result of that, the water being pushed away, it would send a cloud, a nuclear cloud, right? Radiation, asteroids impact, and they turn shit to glass. It's like a nuclear bomb hitting. When one impacts, they're that powerful. And it's literally the same effect. It causes radiation, all right? And then when the water actually came back, it would send tidal waves, right, in all directions. So if you start to think about, nuclear war, it would be the perfect cover-up. Same thing, and I told you guys, when we look at hypersonic missiles, which is the latest technology of all the countries, they behave like meteors. Why is that? Why do they behave like meteors? And like I said, Nostradamus talks about they'll be at war when the meteors start to rain down. You get me? You see what I'm saying? If every world war has been this kind of staged story, right? And it's always the same kind of story, rehearsed over and over and over again. What makes you think that this one is any different? And if you notice too, all of the areas of intense conflict are, places that would be devastated by, shorelines or devastated by faults, seismic activity. major volcanoes, right? Rings of fire, South China Sea, Black Sea, Strait of Hormuz, right? Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, the Gulf Coast, right? All of these different areas would be places that would be really fucking trashed, you know, from an asteroid impact or a pole shift. Just saying. And see, the DoD is now committed to reducing the risk of nuclear war. And I wonder why, right? Scientists have searched the ocean for interstellar objects that hit Earth in 2014. And this is what I'm saying. See this shit hitting in the ocean. Remember, Atlas means of the Atlantic, right? And I've told you guys, I believe that that's exactly where this will hit. If we look at, and I might pull them up tonight, it was 2022 TTX and 2021 PDC, the hypothetical impact scenarios of the asteroids by NASA and all the world governments, where they prepared for the aftermath of catastrophic asteroid impact and collision. In every one of their scenarios, that's where it hits too, right? In the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere close to Europe, usually. Okay, so I'm just saying, and then the predictive programming, don't forget that. Scientists have searched the ocean for interstellar object that hit Earth in 2014. Scientists have launched an undersea expedition to trace and collect the pieces of the first known interstellar object that hit Earth in 2014, reports Science Alert. The said object had crashed into the ocean just off the coast of Papua New Guinea. Examples of interstellar objects are asteroids, comets, or rogue planets that are not gravitationally bound to a star. So they're doing a search, right, for one that landed in Theia is the name of it. I just talked about this the last time. There are two large pieces of a planet, molten iron within our molten iron core and mantle on planet Earth, of the planet called Theia, that actually impacted with the Earth in the past. So I'm just saying, this has happened before, and science has proven that these things have happened before. Huge potentially disruptive sunspot will swing round to face the Earth this weekend. If it could disrupt satellites, cause power outages, and lead to problems for airplane navigation systems. And remember, Trump hardened the grid to electromagnetic pulse back in 2019, I believe. And I've talked about also in 2015, 2017, I believe it was the DoD that actually did the research and the studies on electromagnetic pulse and the effects it would have on the population. And in the research, it said that if the grid was to go down in the United States, that within 1 year, that 90% of the population would die. If you guys also remember Deagle.com, the population projections for 2024 and 2025 for the United States was a decrease in population by 87%. Say what? Why does that line up so perfectly? And we already see that they're now moving Biden-Harris just did an executive order to do 100%, electric and renewable energy here in the U.S. and shit. So why are we moving away from everything and moving to, electricity and all of this? You need to ask yourself that question. One, we know that the United States dollar is the petrodollar based on oil. And then this shortage in fuel that I believe has been artificially created. And we talked about scorched earth, and that it's actually a military tactic to do just that, to destroy, energy, supplies, water, anything that can be used by your enemies, such as resources, right? Or you can even do it to your own country if it's under siege by another one. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It can disrupt satellites, power outages, and lead to problems for airplane navigation systems. A huge sunspot on the far side of the sun is set to face Earth this weekend, potentially lashing our planet with a geomagnetic storm. The spot is so big, it's changing the way the sun vibrates, according to spaceweather.com. If the dark spot hurls a blob of plasma at Earth, it could disrupt our magnetic field, affecting GPS and communication satellites orbiting close to Earth, as well as airplane navigation systems. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, Space Weather Prediction Center issued a forecast for an unsettled geomagnetic field around Earth on August 6th and 7th, which could mean auroras, like I said, that heated gas, though whether it becomes a full-blown solar storm is not yet clear. Sunspots are dark patches on the surface of the sun that are caused by intense magnetic fields. Now, while the sun is on the far side of the sun, scientists detected it by monitoring its effects on the sun's vibrations. Quote, "The sun continually vibrates because of convection bubbles hitting the surface," Dean Pesnell, project scientist of NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, SDO, told Live Science in an email. Hot and cool bubbles that are continually rise and fall inside the sun move energy around, causing vibration that can be detected by solar observatories like the SDO. The sun's strong magnetic field slows these vibrations, which travel through the sun. As a result, observatories like the SDO can monitor sunspots on our host star's far side by the delay in these vibrational waves, despite only being able to see its near side, Pesnell added. The larger the sunspot and the stronger the magnetic field, the larger this delay will be. The telltale vibrational changes showed up in the helioseismic map near the sun's southeastern limb. This weekend, the sunspot will turn to face the Earth, which could potentially lead to solar flares, an intense burst of radiation in the sun's atmosphere. We'll probably see flares when the sunspot rotates into view, Pesnell said. The solar activity could impact the Earth, and solar flares can heat clouds of electricity, charged particles from the sun's upper atmosphere to enormous temperatures, which can launch gigantic blobs of plasma at Earth, known as coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. There is a filament heading in the direction of the sunspot, and so there might be some coronal mass ejections, Pesnell added. Solar flares and CMEs are the major way of activity affects the Earth. From my work, higher levels of solar activity means increased drag on satellites orbiting close to Earth, and satellite operations will lose income of that drag deorbits a working satellite. Other possible effects of more severe space weather included the disruption of communications and navigation in the polar regions, often used by intercontinental plane flights, and even power outages on Earth. The sun has been in an 11-year cycle during which its activity waves and wanes with a distinct solar maximum and solar minimum, when the number of sunspots are most and at least numerous respectively. The sun is now headed for a maximum in 2024 or 2025. Lately, the sun has been more active than NASA predicted. CMEs are normal behavior for sunspots at this point of the sunspot cycle. And I'm going to actually pull up this too. I want to see if I can show you a picture of this. See if they still have it up here. This is fucking crazy. And it's causing it to vibrate the sun. And this is huge, guys. Absolutely huge. And make sure if you're in the chat that you do hit the thumbs up. Hit the like for me. Everybody that's in the chat. And if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe too. Let's see if this thing pops up. Okay. Yeah, far side sunspot. The sunspot on the far side of the sun is so big it's changing the way the sun vibrates. Maps reveal its acoustic echo not far behind the sun's southeastern limb. The sunspot will turn to face the Earth a few days from now. Blue jet lightning sighted over Texas. Seeing one blue jet is rare. This is by far the best. Let me see if I can actually just get this image, because it's not loading right here. Okay, right here. Pull up the blue jet lightning here, which we actually just had, lightning strike, right outside of the fucking White House and shit. So, I mean, we've had some weird shit going on lately. Solar Cycle 25 is exceeding predictions and showing why we need the GDC mission. December 2019 marked the beginning of Solar Cycle 25. The sun's activity has quickly ramped up, and even though we haven't reached peak levels in this cycle, the sun's activity is already exceeding predictions. Solar events will continue to increase as we near solar maximum in 2025, and our lives and technology on Earth, as well as satellites and astronauts in space, will be impacted. NASA's Heliophysics Division is developing a mission that will provide crucial advances in understanding the ionosphere, thermosphere system, and the geospace dynamics constellation. The mission will provide the first coordinated global-scale observations of the IT region where the effects of solar activity are often seen. And you can see there, this is a phase of the satellites. A more active solar maximum. The Solar Cycle 25 prediction panel. Okay, on Earth, that would be like if the North Pole, during the sun's natural 11-year cycle, the sun shifts from relatively calm to stormy and back again. At most active and maximum, the sun freckled with sunspots and its magnetic poles reverse. On Earth, that would be like if the North and the South poles flip-flopped every decade. During solar minimum, on the other hand, sunspots are few and far between. Often the sun is blank and featureless as egg yolk. And think about that. If the sun does that on the regular, then why is it, why is it something, unthinkable or unfathomable for the Earth to do that very regularly too, to have magnetic reversals? It makes no fucking sense, just to keep it real. And you can see here, this is what I mean about the preparation for something on a global scale, right? If you've already, and we've talked about this, right? The horsemen of the apocalypse, the first rider who had a bow, which in the Greek is a toxon, right? It's like the device or the mechanism that is used, conquering and to conquer. And remember, in the tarot, the number 19 card is the sun card. C19, corona, means sun, right, as well. The virus of the crown chakra, or the virus of the Son of God, right, when all of this happened. And they have essentially been able to get the populations under control and get everybody kind of bagged and tagged, right, if you will, and get the global agenda started. Shutting down private farmers since, right, Bill Gates becoming the largest farmer in the world, when all the farmers in the United States were getting those letters from the federal government telling them that the government would Agent Orange it. If they didn't mow it down, they'd pay them double. Then we had, the crude oil being dumped out everywhere, and the big 160,000 gallons, off the West Coast, spilled out into the ocean that brought in the Coast Guard. Then we had the supply chain disruption. And I even put in the private show last night showing all the fires in the food supply factories. I mean, just a tremendous amount of that's taken place, right, with all this disruption. And then you see, so they've got basically everybody by the balls. Then they bring in, emergency stuff through the pandemic and replace teachers, doctors, nurses, school bus drivers, essentially everything that is considered essential, with FEMA, National Guard, what have you, right? And this was all part of, the 30,000 National Guard troops occupying the nation's capital, which goes back to the prophecy of Cyrus, King Cyrus, who was minted on a gold coin, the outsider that becomes the king of Babylon, and Babylon falling in his 4th year. And those 30,000 troops occupying, remember the Transition Integration Project of 2020, where the power, essentially was being handed over, in my opinion, to the UN, right, from the United States when Trump left. Okay, and that's why, Biden's such a fucking clown and a puppet, because he's not even a real president, But all of these things have been put into place, and now you've seen the largest amount of full-on, like China Taiwan, Japan, Russia. I mean, you name it. Everybody is doing military drills right now for full-on invasions, and it makes you wonder if they are preparing for the actual action now, using one another's military to take care of each other's citizens, if you will. China continued military exercises on Friday with the official Weibo account of the Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army saying China's military conducted air and sea combat drills to the north, southwest, and east of Taiwan, in a sign of growing fallout between the U.S. and China over House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan this week. Beijing has halted cooperation with Washington in 8 areas, including climate and military issues. In other retaliatory move, China announced sanctions against Pelosi. China said Friday more than 100 warplanes and 10 warships have taken part in live-fire military drills. The U.S. summoned Chinese Ambassador King Gang to the White House to demarcate him about the PRC's provocative actions against Taiwan. And Kirby says U.S.-China military is still in communication. The United States is not seeking a crisis with China and the Indo-Pacific, White House National Security Council for Strategic Communications said Friday. And I just want you to keep in mind Biden's executive order to bring in, China, essentially, in case of, cataclysm or collapse or whatever. China has the number one foot soldiers when it comes to UN peacekeepers. And remember, in the UN disarmament treaty, if the United States were to collapse, right, that the National Guard would be turned to UN peacekeepers and they would bring in the UN. And we've shown a million videos with all those white vehicles basically waiting on military bases. Just saying. And then you see here, U.S. readies new $1 billion Ukraine weapons package. Once again, right? Biden administration's next security package for Ukraine is expected to be $1 billion, and the largest so far includes munitions for long-range weapons and armored medical transport vehicles. 3 sources briefed on the matter told Reuters on Friday. This is just one more military move that's kind of showing you that they're getting ready. Pentagon chief calls to China go unanswered amid Taiwan crisis. Officials and experts say Beijing's silence is a dangerous move, right? Shutting down communication. It's like letting you know. Not to mention all the launching of the satellites, too. Is Earth getting closer to the sun or farther away? And will this change in distance affect our planet's climate? Say what? So we're wobbling, we're slowing down, the sun cycle is, way more intense than expected and, starting to vibrate weird. And now we have this. The sun moves in such a predictable way across the sky that you might never suspect that its relationship with the Earth is changing all the time. In fact, the average distance between the Earth and the sun is not a static year over year. So we do know if Earth is getting closer to or farther from the sun and what forces are acting on our planet and our star to make this happen. And remember, it says that we'll go from a 365-day year to a 360-day year after this cycle ends. In short, the sun is getting farther away from the Earth over time. On average, Earth is about 93 million miles from the sun, according to NASA. However, its orbit is not perfectly circular. It's slightly elliptical or oval-shaped. This means Earth's distance from the sun can range from about 91.4 million to 94.5 million miles, NASA says. Still, on average, the expanse between Earth and the sun is slowly increasing over time. This growing distance has 2 major causes. One is that the sun is losing mass. The other involves the same forces that cause tides on Earth. And think about the sun losing mass. All of these massive ejections of plasma and our skies lighting up red and pink all the time. That's because the sun's burning off all of its hydrogen and we are seeing helium that's actually lighting up the skies. That's what's giving it that pink color, that pink glow. Just in case you didn't know. Okay? And that's also a sign of a dwarf star, too. Just saying. So, it could be that as well. The sun is shrinking. The nuclear fusion reactions that powers the sun convert mass to energy. Following Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared, because the sun is constantly producing energy, it's also steadily losing mass over the course of the sun's remaining lifetime, estimated at another 5 billion years or so, according to NASA. Models of how stars evolve over time predict the sun will lose about 0.1% of its total mass before it begins to die. Brian DiGiorgio, an astronomer at the University of California, Santa Cruz, told Live Science in an email, although 0.1 may not sound like a lot, this is a lot of mass. It's about the same amount of mass as Jupiter. Jupiter, in turn, is about 318 times Earth's mass, according to Exploratorium in California. The strength of an object's gravitational pull is proportional to how much mass it has. Because the sun is losing mass, its pull on Earth is weakening, leading our planet to drift away from our star by about 2.36 inches per year, DiGiorgio said. But we shouldn't throw the sun a bon voyage party just yet. This is pretty negligible, especially compared to the normal variation in Earth's orbital distance that happens because of the slightly elliptical orbit, about 3%. And the effect of tides, this is the moon's gravitational pull. I'm not even going to go into that, honestly. I'm just going to show you. The effect's already taking place. No, that's not that one. That one's funny, though. They had to kill him twice. He was so bad they had to kill him twice. How about that? Yeah. That just kind of shows you all of that crisis fucking bullshit. Here you go. Lafayette Park. 2 people killed and 2 critically injured by a lightning strike near the White House. Say what? Look at that. Why would a bolt of lightning hit the fucking White House, right? I thought that was a holy place, And was it lightning, or was it like some type of electromagnetic pulse or some frequency weapon? Who actually knows what would actually make that happen? Just keeping it real. And everybody in the chat, make sure that you are hitting the like for me, okay? Do that for me, guys. Everybody, make sure to hit that thumbs up, no matter which channel you're watching from. It says 2 people were killed and 2 others are in critical condition after lightning struck at the park next to the White House in D.C. Emergency responders received a report about people found injured in Lafayette Park, 6:52 p.m. on Thursday evening. U.S. Park Police and members of the Secret Service who were in the area at the time also rushed to assist the 4 people hurt. So we got lightning strikes. Remember the 42 people killed the lightning storm in India last year. Alul Akbar, at least 549 killed in floods across Pakistan since mid-June during the wettest monsoon in decades. I was just talking about monsoons earlier as a result of all the climate catastrophe and changes. Flash floods caused by abnormally heavy rains have killed at least 549 people and destroyed thousands of homes, 46,200 as of now, across Pakistan since the monsoon downpours began in mid-June. And you can see there, that's fucking crazy. Our losses are massive. The province's chief minister, Abdul Qudus Benzinjo, said there were food shortages in every district hit by the flooding, with some also disconnected from the rest of the province due to more than 700 kilometers of road being washed away. It gets better, guys. It gets better. Lots going on right now, all as a result of what's taking place. Another exceptional deluge slams the U.S. as up to a foot of rain in less than 12 hours floods Illinois. And you can see the flooding right there. It seems like a barrage of extreme rain events have been wreaking havoc across the country over the past week. You're not imagining things. The latest results from an overnight deluge in central and southeastern Illinois, with some areas registering 8 to 12 inches of rain in less than 12 hours. It's the third 1 in 1,000 year rain event in the lower 48 states in about a week. That's fucking crazy. And you can see here, flash flood warnings have affected a large swath of central and southern Illinois from around Springfield to southeast of Effingham. That's where months' worth of rain have fallen because of a parade of thunderstorms. Many of them were training or repeatedly moving over the same neighborhoods. Say, what? Repeatedly moving over the same neighborhoods. Isn't that weird? Right? Like, and that's why people think that, you know, there's like weather manipulation and shit and weaponized weather, right? Because it was training or repeatedly moving over the same neighborhoods. Just saying, that's fucking strange right there. I don't care who you are. You can see, look, Illinois, look at that. Car just kicking it underwater. No good, man. Here we go. Next. Catastrophic fire and rain as McKinney blaze rages, floods and thousands of lightnings hit Northern California. And think about this, the lightning striking, this is also a result of the magnetic field. Whenever we go into magnetic excursion, and all of that energy goes into the field and into the earth, it essentially gets trapped, right? When that greenhouse gas and all that starts to take shape, it has nowhere to escape. So the magnetic field gets charged to the point where it will start discharging bolts of energy, bolts of lightning. And I believe those plasmatic discharges is what created the Grand Canyon, you know, just to keep it real. It was something like that. That's actually what made the Grand Canyon. And if you think about the olden times, you know, from around some of our other great conjunctions that have happened in the past, you know, people used to have umbrellas, metal umbrellas with spikes on them so they could stick them in the ground. And I believe that they were literally lightning rods to keep their ass from being struck because the magnetic changes were happening then. Right? They were at the end of a cycle then. So they were trying to attract the lightning to their umbrella instead of getting their ass fried by it. In the Klamath National Forest in Northern California, where the McKinney fire has killed 4 people, residents have been confronted by raging inferno and flooding rain. Heavy rains helped slow the growth of the fire, but triggered flooding in parts of the burned area. On Tuesday night, slow-moving severe thunderstorms unleashed downpours near the McKinney fire, which has consumed more than 57,000 acres in California's largest fire of 2022. And look at that. 2 more deaths reported for McKinney fire. Look at that, man. You know, very intense. Exclusive video that received. Unnamed firefighters. Yeah. Firefighters trapped in debris flow. This is showing you, meanwhile, thunderstorm activities brought a rash of lightning to the broader region, possibly sparking new fires. And there it is, showing you the region. Finally, Lake Powell and Lake Mead could collapse without more water cuts along the Colorado River. And remember, the Waltons and Walmart, because they wanted to save fresh water for everybody, they invested into the Colorado River. And as soon as those bastards did, I swear to you, that thing went to shit. New research points to a collapse of Lake Mead and Lake Powell if neither the upper nor lower Colorado River Basin states sacrifice to cut water use. If neither side blinks and neither side were to seriously reduce its use, then the system will go to dead pool, said the director of Utah State University Center for Colorado River Studies. A week ago, Lake Mead's water level dropped to historic lows. Increasingly flow from the Colorado River would help replenish Lake Mead as well as Lake Powell, which also generates hydroelectricity. And if you guys remember too, I can show you. I'll just show you I won't go into all of them, but I'll just show you just recently what's happening. Look at that. Fissure eruption at Merritt volcano. Grapefruit-sized hail in Alberta. Okay? Just saying, fucking crazy shit, man. Flash floods, closed roads in Death Valley. Look at that. The gigantic 82-foot wide, 650-foot deep sinkhole in Chile. All right, man. This is a lot of shit. Sudden hailstorm buries roads and cars in Colorado. A foot of hail. 16 dead. Eastern Kentucky. One of the most devastating flooding events in the Commonwealth's history. Not to mention the monkeypox, okay? Las Vegas flooding. Multiple casinos, entire strip, and airport underwater as Sin City puts a flash flood warning. Okay? You feel me? I'm just trying to show you. At least 4 dead, 60 injured, 3 feet high waves generated by powerful magnitude 7.0 in northern Philippines. Wildfires setting off 100-year-old bombs on World War II battlefields in Slovenia. France on drought alert to farmers forced by reduced water. Food shortage coming. And they're always saying that. Sakurajima volcano erupts violently, level 5 alert. And I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg there, man. The tip of the iceberg. Now let's jump into a little bit of this Planet X here. And we're going to look into a few books here. I've got Earth in Upheaval by Emmanuel Velikovsky, as well as Worlds in Collision open tonight. We've got the Colburn Bible. I've got Nostradamus Prophecies. And I've got some other text and things on Planet X and Planet 9. We're going to kind of go over and, kind of do a little bit of live research in real time here. So everybody, if you are in the chat room right now, make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that like for me. It really does help me a whole bunch. It helps people to find us. While we're actually doing the videos. And, share the link out there, dude. Share it to your Facebook groups or whatever you're into. Whatever platform you're watching it from. Make sure that you follow and subscribe. That's a big deal, too. And click the bell to get the notifications. And like I said, we are at the start of a new month. And, I'm trying to get things back rolling. So I need your support. And donating is the way it happens. So without your donations, we don't do it. So, this is my livelihood, and this is how this channel goes. So consider donating, supporting, and text or email for your private links to the uncensored content as well. And make sure to join us on Discord so you can watch those private shows with us. It's really good shit, I promise you. So, moving forward here. Let's start here at the Colburn. Okay. And I think I want to, the dark days. All right. Now, I don't know how many of you guys would actually want to hear the first couple chapters. We'll do chapter 3. We'll do 3 of it, part 3, and then we'll go to Dark Days to kind of give you a refresher. Okay. The doom shape, called the Destroyer, in Egypt was seen in all the lands whereabouts. In color, it was bright and fiery. In appearance, changing and unstable. It twisted about itself like a coil, like water bubbling into a pool from an underground supply. And all men agree it was a most fearsome sight. It was not a great comet or a loosened star, being more like a fiery body of flame. Its movements on high were slow. Below it swirled in the manner of smoke and remained close to the sun whose face it hid. There was a bloody redness about it, which changed as it passed along its course. It caused death and destruction in its rising and setting. It swept the earth with gray cinder rain and caused many plagues, hunger, and other evils. It bit the skin of men and beasts until they became mottled with sores. Think about one of the symptoms of something that got everybody lining up for something else in San Francisco right now. The earth was troubled and shook. The hills and mountains moved and rocked. The dark smoke filled heavens, bowed over earth, and a great howl came to the ears of men, borne to them upon the wings of the wind. It was the cry of the dark Lord, the master of dread. Thick clouds of fiery smoke passed before him, and there was an awful hail of hot stones and coals of fire. The doom-shape thundered sharply in the heavens and shot out bright lightnings, like what we seen at the White House. The channels of water were turned back unto themselves when the land tilted, and great trees were tossed about and snapped like twigs. Then a voice, like 10,000 trumpets, was heard over the wilderness, and before its burning breath the flames parted. The whole of the land moved, and mountains melted. The sky itself roared like 10,000 lions in agony, and bright arrows of blood sped back and forth across its face. Earth swelled up like bread upon the hearth. This was the aspect of the doom shape called the Destroyer. When it appeared in days long gone by, in olden times, it is thus described in the old records, few of which remain. It is said that when it appears in the heavens above, earth splits open from the heat, like a nut roasted before the fire. Then flames shoot up through the surface and leap about like fiery fiends upon black blood. The moisture inside the land is all dried up. The pastures and cultivated places are consumed in flames, and they and all trees become white ashes. The doom shape is like a circling ball of flame which scatters small fiery offspring in its train. It covers about a fifth part of the sky and sends writhing snake-like fingers down to earth. Before it, the sky appears frightened, and it breaks up and scatters away. Midday is no brighter than night, and it spawns a host of terrible things. These are the things said of the Destroyer in the old records. Read them with a solemn heart, knowing that the doom shape has its appointed time and will return. It would be foolish to let them go unheeded. Now men say, such things are not destined for our days. May the great God above grant that this be so. But come, the day surely will, and in accordance with his nature, man will be unprepared. To me, and remember, this is pre-diluvian, this is pre-flood, written on brass, the Egyptian text, right? And this is the Egyptian perspective of the book of Exodus, essentially. Okay, so now we move to the dark days, and I don't know if I've ever did dark days with you guys, so this ought to be cool. I really like this part too. You know, this is kind of the aftermath here. The dark days began with the last visitation of the Destroyer, and they were foretold by strange omens in the skies. All men were silent and went about with pale faces. The leaders of the slaves which had built a city to the glory of Thumb stirred up unrest, and no man raised his arm against them. They foretold great events of which the people were ignorant and of which the temple seers were not informed. And think about this. I wonder if Thumb here, Thumb, would be akin to like Thopme or Thoth or Thor or whatever, right? Just saying. And notice too, the foretold great events in which the people were ignorant. So just like in today, where people have no clue about these things, they were the same way back then. And even the temple seers, so the religious leaders, right, the priests, they were not informed. Just the same way they're not today. These were the days of ominous calm, when the people waited for what they knew not what. Remember, the calm before the storm. The presence of an unseen doom was felt. The hearts of men were stricken. Laughter was heard no more, and grief and wailing sounded throughout the land. Even the voices of children were stilled, and they did not play together, but stood silent. The slaves became bold and insolent, and women were the possession of any man. Fear walked the land, and women became barren with terror. They could not conceive, and those with child aborted. All men closed up within themselves. The days of stillness were followed by a time when the noise of trumpeting and shrilling was heard in the heavens, and the people became as frightened beasts without a herdsman, as asses when lions prowl without their fold. The people spoke of the God of the slaves, and reckless men said, "If we knew where this God were to be found, we would sacrifice to him." But the God of the slaves was not among them. He was not to be found within the swamplands or in the brick pits. His manifestation was in the heavens for all men to see. But they did not see with understanding, nor would any God listen, for all were dumb because of the hypocrisy of men. The dead were no longer sacred and were thrown into the waters. Those already entombed were neglected, and many became exposed. They lay unprotected against the hands of thieves. He who once toiled long in the sun, bearing the yoke himself, now possessed oxen. He who grew no grain now owned a storehouse full. He who once dwelt at ease among his children now thirsted for water. He who once sat in the sun with crumbs and dregs was now bloated with food. He reclined in the shade, his bowls overflowing. Cattle were left unattended to roam into strange pastures, and men ignored their marks and slew the beasts of the neighbors. No man owned anything. The public records were cast forth and destroyed, and no man knew who were slaves and who were masters. The people cried out to Pharaoh in their distress, but he stopped his ears and acted like a deaf man. There were those who spoke falsely before Pharaoh and had gods hostile towards the land. Therefore the people cried out for their blood to appease it. But it was not these strange priests who put in strife in the land instead of peace. For one was even of the household of Pharaoh and walked among the people unhampered. And this to me could actually be talking about Moses right here, right? You think about this is the God of the slaves, right? Pharaoh in Egypt, okay? So the slaves were the Hebrews, right? According to the Bible, okay? And that their God come from the heavens above, right? Passover, right? Where they put the blood over the door and all of that, right? Parting of the Red Sea, the burning bush, all of this, okay? He comes with pillars of smoke and fire and all of this, right? The coming of the Lord. Just saying, right? Fire and brimstone. So there was one in the household of Pharaoh who walked among the people unhampered. Or we also know that Moses was in the house of Pharaoh and was like a prince or something, essentially, right? So we're going to see throughout the story the different connections and correlations to the Bible and how this is a different perspective, a far more detailed perspective in account of what happened in that time. And remember, too, this is what's crazy about it. It says the people cried out to Pharaoh in their distress. What did Moses do? He kept going to Pharaoh saying, "Let my people go," right? But he stopped his ears and acted like a deaf man. And as the plagues of Egypt rolled out, Pharaoh didn't respond to any of the stuff, remember? Those who spoke falsely before Pharaoh had gods hostile towards the land. Remember, Moses kept telling him, like, dude, straighten up or my God's going to get in that ass, right? Therefore the people cried out for their blood to appease it. But it was not these strange priests who put strife in the land instead of peace. For one was even of the household of Pharaoh, so a strange priest in the household of Pharaoh, and walked among the people unhampered. Dust and smoke clouds darkened the sky and colored the waters upon which they fell with a bloody hue. Plague was throughout the land. The river was bloody and blood was everywhere. The water was vile and men's stomachs shrank from drinking it. Those who did drink from the river vomited it up, for it was polluted. The dust tore wounds in the skins of man and beast. In the glow of the destroyer, the earth was filled with redness. Vermin bred and filled the air and face of the earth with loathsomeness. Wild beasts afflicted with torments under the lashing sand and ashes came out of their lairs in the wastelands and cave places and stalked the abodes of men. All the tame beasts whimpered and the land was filled with the cries of sheep and moans of cattle. And think about this too, guys, like the different plagues of Egypt, the vermin, right? Locusts and frogs and all this shit, right? Coming up out of the ground because of the magnetism and the heat and all of that, pushing them out before their time, okay? The water being poisoned just like wormwood, right? Turning the water to wormwood. And all of their skin mottled with sores. Trees throughout the land were destroyed and no herb or fruit was to be found. The face of the land was battered and devastated by a hail of stones which smashed down all that stood in the path of the torrent. They swept down in hot showers, and strange flowing fire ran along the ground in their wake. The fish of the river died in the polluted waters. Worms, insects, and reptiles sprang up from the earth in huge numbers. Great gusts of wind brought the swarms of locusts which covered the sky. As the destroyer flung itself through the heavens, it blew great gusts of cinders across the face of the land. The gloom of a long night spread a dark mantle of blackness which extinguished every ray of light. None knew when it was day and when it was night, for the sun cast no shadow. The darkness was not the clean blackness of night, but a thick darkness in which the breath of men was stopped in their throats. Men gasped in a hot cloud of vapor which enveloped all the land and snuffed out all lamps and fires. Men were benumbed and lay moaning in their beds. None spoke to another or took food, for they were overwhelmed with despair. Ships were sucked away from their moorings and destroyed in great whirlpools. It was a time of undoing. The earth turned over as clay spun upon a potter's wheel. The whole land was filled with uproar from the thunder of the destroyer overhead and the cry of the people. There is the sound of moaning and lamentation on every side. The earth spewed up its dead. Corpses were cast up out of their resting places, and the embalmed were revealed to the sight of all men. Pregnant women miscarried, and the seed of men was stopped. The craftsman left his task undone, the potter abandoned his wheel, and the carpenter his tools, and they departed to dwell in the marshes. All crafts were neglected, and the slaves lured the craftsman away. The dues of Pharaoh could not be collected, for there was neither wheat nor barley, goose nor fish. The rights of Pharaoh could not be enforced, for the fields of grain and the pastures were destroyed. The highborn and the lowly prayed together that life might come to an end, and the turmoil and thundering cease to beat upon their ears. Terror was the companion of men by day, and horror their companion by night. Men lost their senses and became mad. They were distracted by frightfulness. They lost their senses and became mad. Right? And think about it. The effects of electromagnetism on our brains and our consciousness. We know that the life cycle, the IQ, and our brain activity depends on solar activity, right? The length of our life and all of that depends on solar activity. And we know that EMF actually has effects on our minds and can make us hallucinate and shit like that. So think about it. These men became mad because this thing was so close that it had such black smoke that it would suffocate anyone when it passed by, type shit. Just sucked all the air out. And think about the bottomless pit opening in the book of Revelations, talking about the black smoke coming out, and filling the sky. And the moon becoming blood, and the sun, becoming black as sackcloth made of goat hair, right? They experienced the same exact thing. On the great night of the destroyer's wrath, when its terror was at its height, There was a hail of rocks, and the earth heaved as pain rent her bowels. Gates and columns and walls were consumed by fire, and the statues of gods were overthrown and broken. People fled outside their dwellings in fear and were slain by the hail. Those who took shelter from the hail were swallowed when the earth split open. The habitations of men collapsed upon their side, and there was panic on every hand. But the slaves who lived on rooftops in the heavens hurled wrath upon him, and he died. The land writhed under the wrath of the destroyer and groaned with the agony of Egypt. It shook itself, and the temples and palaces of the nobles were thrown down from their foundations. The highborn ones perished in the midst of the ruins, and all the strength of the land was stricken. Even the great one, the firstborn of Pharaoh, died with the highborn in the midst of the terror and falling stones. The children of princes were cast out into the street, as those who were not cast out died within their abodes. And remember, that was like, what, the final curse, right? Pharaoh's oldest died, right? Same story. Just a different perspective. When it passed away, brother buried brother throughout the land. Men rose up against those in authority and fled from the cities to dwell in tents in the outlands. Egypt lacked great men to deal with the times. And think about why you would need military invasions and martial law and to kind of tag everybody like cattle in today's world before something like this took place, right? If all the Capitol buildings and everything are, collapse, and all the highborn are, generals and great men of the earth are calling for the mountains to fall on them and hide them, right? What do you think is going to happen with the people? They're going to do exactly what they did this time. They'll rise the fuck up, right? And those who were toiling in the fields are going to be kicking it in the shade, right? The tables will turn, The tables would turn. So they're getting ahead of all of this, right? Keeping you oblivious to it. That way you get wiped out from any of it that happens. If you live by the coast or whatever, a fault line or, anything, keeping it completely sealed up from everybody so it just unsuspectingly smokes us one day. And, if you do survive, they've got you tagged, right? Over 90% of the population in every country is tagged now and can even be tracked and controlled with frequency. They've even, created a new type of frequency that's, far more direct and can actually, kill you, or, make you migrate to places or certain areas, right? By sending impulses to your brain and shit. Deep underground military bases and tunnel systems, basically in every country. Yet they don't have none of this for the citizens, And they're making it to where you can't stock up on anything because all the supplies are going to be gone. We'll be at war and shit, right? All the land invaded, and it'll be no thing because they'll be using each other's militaries to do all the killing. So if you think a Chinese soldier has a problem with killing an American, you're tripping, right? Same way an American wouldn't have a problem with killing a Chinese person, People better wake up to this shit because, it looks like they're just trying to prevent, this from happening again, basically. The aftermath, so they can keep power, when they start over. Maximize the death toll. Cover up what's happening to the last possible second. Staging a giant war and, using each other's militaries to take control of all the land because they're already in cahoots together. It's already the conquering and to conquer. When you've seen globally every country do the same thing, follow the same protocols, that let you know the New World Order and all that's already here. Okay. The habitations of men collapsed upon those inside, and there was panic on every hand. But the slaves who lived in huts in the reed lands at the place of pits were spared. The land burnt like tinder. A man watched upon his rooftops, and heavens hurled wrath upon him, and he died. The land writhed under the wrath of the destroyer and groaned with the agony of Egypt. It shook itself in the midst of the ruins, and all the strength of the land was stricken. Even the great one, the firstborn of Pharaoh, died with the highborn in the midst of the terror and falling stones. The children of princes were cast into the streets, and those who were not cast out died within their abodes. There were 9 days of darkness and upheaval, while a tempest raged such as never had been known before. When it passed away, brothers buried brother throughout the land. Men rose up against those in authority and fled from the cities to dwell in tents in the outlands. Egypt lacked great men to deal with the times. The people were weak from fear and bestowed gold, silver, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and copper upon the slaves. And to their priests they gave chalices, urns, and ornaments. Pharaoh alone remained calm and strong in the midst of confusion. The people turned to wickedness and their weakness and despair. Harlots walked through the streets unashamed. Unashamed. Women paraded their limbs and flaunted their womanly charms. Highborn women were in rags, and the virtues were mocked. The slaves spared by the destroyer left the accursed land forthwith. Their multitude moved in the gloom of half-dawn under a mantle of fine swirling gray ash, leaving the burnt fields and shattered cries behind them. Many Egyptians attached themselves to the host, for one who was great led them forth, a priest prince of the inner courtyard. A priest prince of the inner courtyard. Moses, right? Fire mounted up on a high, and its burning left the enemies of Egypt. It rose up from the ground as a fountain and hung as a curtain in the sky. In 7 days by Rimwar the accursed ones journeyed to the waters. They crossed the heaving wilderness where the hills melted around them. Above the skies were torn with lightning. They were sped by terror, but their feet became entangled in the land, and the wilderness shut them in. They knew not the way, for no sign was constant before them. They turned before Noshari and stopped Shakoth, the place of quarries. They passed the waters of Maha and came by the valley of Pikaroth, northward of Mara. They came up against the waters which blocked their way, and black winds from the underworld were loosed, and fire sprang up from the ground. The hearts of the slaves shrank within them, for they knew the wrath of Pharaoh followed them, and that there was no way of escape. They hurled abuse on those who led them. Strange rites were performed along the shore that night. The slaves disputed among themselves, and there was violence. Pharaoh had gathered his army and followed the slaves. After he departed, there were riots and disorders behind him, from the cities were plundered. The laws were cast out of the judgment halls and trampled underfoot in the streets. The storehouses and granaries were burst open and robbed. Roads were flooded and none could pass along them. People lay dead on every side. The palace was split, and the princes and officials fled, so that none was left with authority to command. The list of numbers were destroyed, and public places were overthrown, and houses became confused and unknown. Pharaoh pressed on in sorrow, for behind him all was desolation and death. Before him were things he could not understand, and he was afraid. But he carried himself well and stood before his host with courage. He sought to bring back the slaves, for the people said their magic was greater than the magic of Egypt. The host of Pharaoh came upon the slaves by the saltwater shores, but was held back from them by the breath of fire. A great cloud was spread over the host and darkened the sky. None could see except for the fiery glow and the unceasing lightnings which rent covering cloud overhead. A whirlwind arose in the east and swept over the encamped host. A gale raged all night. In the red twilight dawn there was movement of the earth. The waters receded from the seashore and were rolled back on themselves. There was a strange silence, and in the gloom it was seen that the waters had parted, leaving a passage between. The land had risen, but it was disturbed and trembled. The way was not straight or clear. The waters about were as if spun within a bowl. The swampland alone remained undisturbed. From the horn of the destroyer came a high, shrilling noise which stopped the ears of men. The slaves had been making sacrifices in despair. Their lamentations were loud. Now before the strange sight there was a hesitation and doubt. For the space of a breath they stood still and silent. Then all was confusion and shouting, some pressing forward in the waters against all who sought to flee back from the unstable ground. Then in exaltation their leader led them into the midst of the waters through the confusion. Yet many sought to turn back into the host behind them. While others fled along the empty shores, all became still over the sea and upon the shore. But behind, the earth shook and boulders split with a great noise. The wrath of heaven was removed to a distance and stood upwards of the two hosts. Still the host of Pharaoh held its ranks, firm and resolved before the strange and awful happenings, and undaunted by the fury which raised by their side. Stern faces were lit darkly by the fiery curtain. Then the fury departed, and there was silence. Stillness spread over the land, while the host of Pharaoh stood without movement in red glow. Then, with a shout, the captains went forward, and the host rose up behind them. The curtain of fire had rolled up into a dark, billowing cloud which spread out as a canopy. There was a stirring of the waters, but they followed the evildoers past the palace of the great whirlpool. The passage was confused in the midst of the waters, and the ground beneath unstable. Here, in the midst of the tumult of waters, Pharaoh fought against the hindmost of the slaves and prevailed over them. And there was a great slaughter amid the sand, the swamp, and the water. The slaves cried out in despair, but their cries were unheeded. Their possessions were scattered behind them as they fled, so that the way was easier for them than for those who followed. Then the stillness was broken by a mighty roar. Through the rolling pillars of cloud, the wrath of the destroyer descended upon the host. The heavens roared as with 1,000 thunders. The bowels of the earth were sundered, and the earth shrieked in its agony. The cliffs were torn away and cast down. The ground fell beneath the waters, and great waves broke upon the shore, sweeping in rocks from seaward. The great surge of rocks and waters overwhelmed the chariots and the Egyptians who went before the footmen. The chariot of Pharaoh was hurled into the air as if by a mighty hand, and was crushed in the midst of the rolling waters. Tidings of the disaster came back by Regeb, son of Tomat, who hastened on ahead of the terrified survivors because of his burning. He brought reports unto the people that the host had been destroyed by a blast and deluge. The captains had gone, the strong men had fallen, and none remained to command. Therefore the people revolted because of the calamities which had befallen them. Cowards slunk from their lairs and became forth boldly to assume the high offices of the dead. Comely and noble women, their protectors gone, were their prey. Of the slaves, a greater number had perished before the host of Pharaoh. The broken land lay helpless, and invaders came out of the gloom like carrion. A strange people came up against Egypt, and none stood to fight. For strength and courage were gone. And think about this, they're describing the parting of the Red Sea. Right? The deluge come down and wiped them out when they were following the slaves across the Red Sea. The invaders, led by Akhenaten, came up out of the land of the gods because of the wrath of heaven which had laid their land waste. There too had been a plague of reptiles and ants and signs and omens and earthquake. There also had been turmoil and disaster, disorder and famine, with the great breath of the destroyer sweeping the ground and stopping the breath of men. Antura gathered together of the remnants of his fighting men and the fighting men who were left in Egypt, and set forth to meet the children of darkness who came out of the eastern mountains by way of the wilderness and by way of Yethnobus. They fell upon the stricken land from behind the gray cloud, before the lifting of the darkness and before the coming of the purifying winds. Regeb went with Pharaoh and met the invaders of Harosheth. But the hearts of the Egyptians were faint within, above, and below. Their dwellings destroyed, their households scattered. They were as men already half dead. Their hearts were still filled with terror, and the memory of the wrath which had struck them from out of heaven. They were still filled with the memory of the fearsome sight of the destroyer, and they knew not what they did. And it goes on. I'm not going to keep reading this. It's really long, but incredibly crazy, right? And a very unique take on. Love your reading voice. Thank you so much. Hey, give me a job as a narrator. I would love that, guys. If I could do the narration to something like a voice actor, how cool would that be, right? But you see here, though, what took place was a parting of the Red Seas, right? And afterwards, it says that Pharaoh didn't even return home, you know? To me, this is one of the things that I think would be the worst part about this type of cataclysm hitting the earth. And if we were to read the first couple chapters of The Destroyer, which I'm not going to do tonight, I want to get into some other books and stuff to just mix it up and not bore you with one, just one book. You would see that it talks about how the women becoming possessions and all of that. Like, that's, to me, is like the saddest part of all of this, to know that, how did I put this? Not only would there not be any laws or law enforcement or anyone like that to be able to stop crime of any kind, right? And I guarantee, no matter how much you hate police, you would wish that they were around, in a situation like that, right? Military too. Great show. Thank you so much. But it talks about how children and women, would be taken advantage of, if you will. Their husbands killed or, whatever. Like, think of the most evil deeds you can think of, and then think of people that live by capitalizing on the weak. People that live by capitalizing on the innocent with unbridled, unrestricted, path to be able to do so, right? And in our situation, in our age, those people could very well be, a lot of the world leaders, the hidden hands of the world. One could only hope, that's the plan of the world governments, is to actually. That's why they want to dispatch military. That's why they want to federalize police. That's why they want to do these things, is because they want to get ahead of it and stop that kind of thing from happening, in the aftermath this time. Right? That's a hope I have. Because I do believe that just because you're rich or you're illuminated or whatever doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you bad. Sorry. I don't believe that all those ruling families and hidden hands are all terrible sacks of shit. I just don't believe it. Not anymore. I used to once upon a time ago. I don't anymore. Matter of fact, I think some of them probably are good. And some of the things that we see, some of the measures that we see taken very well could be, anticipatory measures for something like that, But like I said, it could also be just to stop the masses from uprising, to stamp it out before it ever begins, too. It would serve multiple purposes because you couldn't have the uprising without all the chaos, right? It's a very optimistic hope, John. Hey, I've changed a lot, guys. Like, I really have over the years. I've changed a lot. I really have. I see the world differently than I once did. And when you have experience, and the more things that you see, the more things that you've been in, and the more that you know. You learn that you can't put a blanket or a blanket stereotype over any group of people. Yes, Will Smith, MK Ultra, when he slapped Chris Rock, that was a humiliation ritual. Yeah, that was a humiliation ritual, which that's a shitty part of initiation, is it not? Right? Like, to have to be humiliated to prove you can take humiliation and eat that ego, And I imagine anybody that's been through that, that's not their favorite part of all of that. Humiliation is one of the worst things to me, that you can do. So, and I've been humiliated, so. So, I mean, I have. I think we all have in life. It sucks, right? It sucks. So, and I feel like there's weak people, just like the weak people that feed and prey on innocent, same thing with harm and humiliation and all those negative things, right? People that do that to others, they themselves there's something fucked up in them, man. Even if it's only 1%. Yeah, exactly. There's always good chance of good in every group. Even, dude, you know what? What if this? And let me just flip something at you real fast. Wouldn't it be some shit if the Illuminati was actually the good guys? Wouldn't it be some shit? Let me just pose a hypothetical to you. If we are in a system, okay, that is archonically controlled, demonically driven, right? Wouldn't it be some shit if it's nothing like what you think once you become illuminated at all? And it's just a way of, higher conscious communication, and they vary in degree. Some are evil, some got there by evil means, some got there by, pure enlightening means, right? But they are actually the force to tear all this shit down. Wouldn't that be some shit? Right? Almost like saviors instead of captors. Wouldn't that be some shit? And I feel like they have the ability to be either or. And I hate to say it, and I don't hate to say it. I'll just say it. I feel like most of you that watch my channel are illuminated. And you're not bad people. You're not bad people. Well, and that's the thing. We got to think, just like a new world order. What is the true key to all of this? Like, world peace would be all the world's countries coming together. That would be the solution. That would be the solution. But they pervert that idea, right? And make it, oh, it's one of enslavement and control. That way we won't, we'll resist that. But there's an inverse to everything. You could take that and make that the most beautiful idea ever. Or you could take that and make it fucking hell. It's your perspective. It's how you view it. And let's say, who's going to be left around in the world if this thing is an equalizer, if you will, if it's a purifier and it's attracted to negativity, right? What kind of people will be left for the New World Order? Maybe nothing but good people. Maybe nothing but illuminated people. Maybe it won't be nothing like what people have said it will be, and it will actually be utopia. Because there are only good people left on the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth. Well, sacrifice babies, not for you. You know what, though? That's what I mean. That's a stereotype. That's a stereotype. I know many people who are illuminated, and that's what I call Illuminati, is those who are illuminated, right? Period. And whether you belong to the OTO or you did a self-initiation or whatever you've done, it's neither here nor there to me. When you're tapped in, you're tapped in. And not everybody that taps in goes by the same path. I would say Buddha was illuminated. Jesus was illuminated. Right? If you look at like the lost years of Jesus, he was like an Essene and shit. And he traveled the world learning different spiritual teachings and practices. Did he kill anybody? No. Did he sacrifice anyone? No. Buddha, same thing. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just saying my opinion has changed and altered over the years. It really has. Well, bye. Bye-bye. And that's the thing. That's how you can tell someone who doesn't have enlightenment. It's like they can't handle a differing opinion. If you can't even listen to something that varies from what you believe, then what's it say about you? It doesn't say anything about me. That says something about you. That's a reflection of you. We have to learn to agree to disagree. We have to be able to listen to other perspectives and opinions and have to be open to that if we truly want to grow. And that's what all of this is about. It's returning to the original ways, the original teachings. That's what the Hopi prophecy talks about this time is. This is the end of the great cycle. It's humanity returning to its roots. And in our roots, do you think we bickered and fucking argued about religion? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea to entertain, but history has proven cycle after cycle that's not the case. Yeah, but this cycle is different. And you're right, history has proven cycle after cycle. Nobody's going to argue historical accounts on this channel, right? We can't argue what's happened. What's happened has happened. But we can say this, that we can't stereotype any group of people for any reason whatsoever. That's craziness, for one. And this channel is all about accepting everybody no matter what their beliefs are. Right? That's what this channel is about. I would never want someone to exclude me for anything about myself. My spiritual beliefs, my sexual orientation, the color of my skin, any of those things. And I don't want to do it to other people. And I think that's what's wrong with our world. And is it okay, to know the whole child shit? Hell to the no on that. You know what I mean? Hell to the no. But see, that's infringing on another person's free will. You never have the right to take another person's life. Right? You never have the right to take from other people, period. You know what I mean? And a child isn't old enough to make the decision on whether it wants to willingly participate in something like that. So you can't use that as an excuse either. And the parent is not allowed to speak for that child, for its life, no matter if it's their parent or not. Right? you're a psycho. So, I mean, we need, and let's go into Earth and upheaval here. The shifting poles. I know I get into the philosophical shit with everything, but it's like that's how I see the world. That's how I see the world. You know, and all of this relates back to the spiritual essence of us and who we are, man. Like, truthfully. And I don't believe I'm some model of perfection. You know, so many people, it's like, oh, that guy, he thinks he's a know-it-all, or he thinks he's better than everybody. It's like, yeah, right, dude. I'm a sack of shit in some ways, you know? And I do things I'm not proud of. And, you know, like we all do. But I ain't going to sit around judging everybody else for theirs. And I don't want other people to sit around and judge me. You know, I want people to accept me for the way I am. And I want to be able to accept you for the way you are. The pole shift is exactly what it's planned to happen. This will happen next, and it'll be devastating. Here, let me pull up the latest Sweet and Psycho. Hey, I'm telling you what, my next girlfriend's going to be a psycho. You can bet your ass on that. I love those crazy ones. You know, I love the crazy ones. Just perfect for me, for real. You got to be crazy to date me anyways. So, you know, just saying. That's why I always go for, woke chicks. You know, they're nuttier than squirrel shit, but it's, you know, I need somebody who's smart, you know, somebody who's open, and, somebody who accepts me for me. And most people are judgmental as fuck, and they don't accept themselves, let alone another person. You feel me? So how are they going to accept you for who you are? And that's like the thing, man. You know, I used to seek others' acceptance all the time, dude. I did. I wanted it at one point in time. You know, you snap out of that one day. You stop giving a fuck. You're like, nah, I don't need none of your acceptance now. Right? Here's the latest updated shit. Right, and keep in mind, like, the HAARP antenna is right in, like, Alaska. It's really crazy that these magnetic points on the Earth right now, and this is over Siberia. Look how intense and big it's gotten over this side, and look how weak it's gotten over Canada. Right, these are 2 points of HAARP. I just want to point that out. And you can see here, there's that South Atlantic anomaly that I was referring to. See the magnetic lines? Like I said, the dissipation over Canada, concentration over Siberia. Here is the latest measurements from the migration of the poles. There's the new North Pole right there where the little hand is at. And here is where we are relative to the 40-degree mark. Right, you can put one little computer hand in between that. That's how close we are to pole shift. That's fucking crazy. You feel me? That is crazy. And that's part of all of this, you know. And lo, there was an earthquake, right? The sun became black as sackcloth, the goat hair, the moon became blood, islands and mountains were removed from their place, and the sky receded back like a scroll. Right? This is part of it. And you can tell it's got a lot to do with magnetics. You know, something magnetic is influencing our sun. That's why it's fucking vibrating weirdly. That's why it's having the major mass ejections. That's why it's literally, you know, it's losing fuel. It's like being drained, basically. You know, to the point it's starting to burn helium now. turning red and pink and shit. That's pretty concerning. Just saying. And you wonder why they're actually creating sun simulators. Could that be why? Because they know our star is dying. That's a way scarier concept too, guys. I'm just saying. Our sun is what gives life. Okay? So if this final conflagration, if this celestial alignment, if this final passing, if this is the reason that this is the end, this could be because it actually destroys the sun. Remember, a third of the sun is struck, a third of the moon is struck. The sun stops giving its light. Something devastating happens to our sun in all of this. And I don't think that can be denied. Matter of fact, scientists right now talk about, how the sun traveling on the galactic sheet and, denser parts of space, and that's what's creating magnetic excursion. And I believe it's what the Divolt Foundation says in 2038 or 2040, that's when we'll get the solar flash event. What if that recurring nova is it for our star? We really better, start rethinking that not everything is as it appears. Okay? Not everything is as it appears, and not everything is as we're told either. If God is closing up shop on everything, well, it makes no shit of a difference what we think if there is a creative force that says, okay, I'm turning off the light bulb for everybody. I'm turning life off for all of you. Why would the governments of the world create a way to lock everybody frequency-wise into, the dark star, essentially? Why would they do that? Why would they feel like they needed to do that? Do they know something that we don't? The attack on white blood cells and the red blood cells that attract iron, right? Saturn and its iron. The iron mixed with miry clay. All of this stuff with the iron. Okay? And then the replacing of the carbon with the graphene and all of this. What if the reason for transhumanism, the reason for a simulation being created is because they know the sun's going to be destroyed. And that's the only reality we could actually exist in. And this is what I'm saying about, once again, just kind of thinking about the world leaders, the world powers, the Illuminati, all of this. Things may not fucking be as it appears, and things may be a lot different than what you're being told. It's to keep us on a lower frequency, on the lower end, so they can keep feeding us. Well, yeah, no. But don't get me wrong. I agree with that, and that's part of the whole Saturn Moon Matrix theory, right? Is keeping oppressing our frequency, right? That way we can stay in a vampiric, parasitic system. But in ascension or transfiguration is us ascending out of that. But, the whole ascension prevention and all of that, you got to ask yourself, man, is it just really because archonic entities want to keep you here and feed off of you while they're trying to prevent all of this? Or is there something more to it, is all I'm saying. And you got to think from like a human perspective. Do they know that the earth will actually be destroyed? Right? So they're trying to slow down the process, to keep it going longer. You got to think these scientists aren't religious. They don't give a fuck if you're, when you see him, you'll be like him type shit. They don't care if you're going to be an angel after all this happens. Do you feel me? They don't even believe in that shit. You got to think of from the people that are actually doing this stuff. Scientists don't believe in God. Most of them. Scientists don't, you know what I mean? They believe in quantum realities and all of this, but they don't believe in the same religious concepts that most of us do. Or even spiritual concepts. Let's throw religion out. You know? And there's no guarantee of anything after we die. We believe that we continue. We believe our consciousness continues. And I think there's some evidence as far as that. Looking at paranormal studies and ghost hunting and, electronic voice phenomenon, all of those things. I think there's evidence of that. But that could just be evidence of interdimensional entities, being within our realm and us not being able to see them. Those ghosts or whatever could just be disembodied spirits or demons from some other realm and have never been human bodies and are just able to mimic humans. If we are their drug, then they would want to keep us going. Exactly. Why are they depopulating and calling? Right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like there's a lot of things in this that don't make sense. It makes zero sense to depopulate and call us down if we're their food source. If it's our soul that feeds them, then why would they want to disconnect all of us from it with a mark of the beast? Okay. Yeah, I seen that today, Matt. Matt says 90% of scientists agree 90% of the time with the ones paying for the results. Yet, copies. Okay, well, they can copy our consciousness. That's a fact. Okay? And we know D-Wave is quantum computing. CERN, quantum computing. What if... That's what I'm saying. What if they are trying to lock us into another dimension because they know that the one we're existing in now is not going to make it through the cataclysm? They know that the earth itself is not going to make it. And it says in the Bible, right? Everything that's temporary will be destroyed. Right? Like, this is supposed to be the end-all, be-all. This is the end of the great cycle. Just throwing some theories and ideas out there, guys. That's all I want to do. And just kind of get you thinking, get your gears turning here. I want to know what you think about this stuff. And if you catch us on the flip side, put it in the comment section. But there's some things to consider here of why they would want to create computer simulation and transhumanism and all of that. If they just wanted to reside in hell, they would just leave the world alone and just go to hell, guys. You see what I'm saying? The fact that they're trying to create like an alternate paradigm or a structure within another dimensional space and lock us into particular frequencies, to me, says that there's a bigger problem that we don't know about. In the Bible, talking about everything temporary, the heavens and the earth will pass away with fervent heat and a great noise. And like I said, the sun burning off helium, which means it's probably out of hydrogen and dying. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of things out there we should probably consider. That's what transhumanism is. Let's go to this real quick. This is from Earth in Upheaval, Emmanuel Velikovsky. You guys know that I'm a big proponent of catastrophism. AI wants to merge with us, but why, though, is my point. Why? Why does AI want to merge with us? Right? If AI is really just Lucifer or Satan, wouldn't we all just be evil and die and still merge just the same? Do you see what I'm saying? Does this make sense to anyone? Is what I'm, am I on to something or am I full of shit? Like, let me know. Let me know, The one thing that no other creation in the universe can have is soul. And we have a soul. No other entity does that, and that's what they're trying to hold on to. They're not trying to hold on to it by destroying your pineal, though. They're disconnecting you from it. And I do believe that chemtrails actually... certain frequency of energy goes outside of chemtrails and can't come back downward. So they're trapping like all the positive energy outside of the magnetic field. So to me, this gives credence to some type of extraterrestrial force siphoning off all of the good prana, the good energy, by the chemtrails and terraforming everything and creating a simulated reality beneath where we're all locked in and disconnected. For preservation, yeah. For preservation. That's what I think, man. Honestly. All other theories of the origin of the Ice Age have failed. There remained an avenue of approach which already earlier in the discussion was chosen by several geologists, a shift to the terrestrial poles. If for some reason the poles had moved from their original positions, old polar ice would have moved out of the Arctic and Antarctic circles into new regions. The glacial cover of the Ice Age could have been the polar ice cap of an earlier epoch. Thus would be explained not only the origin of the ice cover, but also the fact that its geographical position did not coincide with the present polar circles. The simplest and most obvious explanation of the great secular changes in climate and a former prevalence of higher temperatures in northern circumpolar regions would be found in the assumption that the Earth's axis of rotation has not always had the same position, but that it may have changed its position as a result of geological process such as extended rearrangement of land and water. So there you have it, right? The Earth at a different axis. Okay? Was it tilted by something passing us or strictly by magnetic reversal? Or both? For decades in the second half of the 19th century, many scientists participated in the debate centering around this theme. Astronomers and mathematicians asked the geologists what, in their opinion, could have caused such a shifting of the terrestrial poles. The best the geologists could offer was the redisposition of the weight on the surface of the Earth. Sir George B. Airy, Astronomer Royal, analyzed the question by assuming that the Earth, a perfectly rigid spheroid or a flattened globe, was disturbed in its rotation by a sudden elevation of mountainous mass and latitudes, most favorable for production of a large effect. The axis of rotation would no longer coincide with the axis of figure, and there would be wobbling. Under these circumstances, the axis of rotation would wander in the solid Earth, but it would not wander indefinitely. Think about the wandering now and how the axis of rotation and all that's changing. However, the smallness of the effect would be disappointing. If a mountain mass should be produced equal to 1/1000th part of the mass of the equatorial bulge, which I apprehend is very far above the fact, the shift of the Earth's pole would be only 2 or 3 miles. And this, though it would greatly surprise astronomers, would produce no such changes of climate as those which it desired to explain. Exactly. We've seen the poles shift quite a bit already and the climate's gone crazy. Sir George Darwin, mathematician and cosmologist, the renowned son of illustrious father, made more thorough calculations on this point. If an ocean bed 15,000 feet deep rose to become a continent the size of Africa, 1,100 feet above sea level, and on the other side of the globe an equal area became depressed, the effect would be a shift of the poles by about 2 degrees. However, where the Earth plastic, the poles would wander to a greater extent. James Croll, the Scottish climatologist, wrote, "There probably never was an upheaval of such magnitude in the history of our Earth, and to produce a deflection of 3 degrees 17, a deflection that would hardly sensibly affect climate no less than 1/10 of the entire surface of the Earth, would require to be elevated to the height of 10,000 feet. A continent 10 times the size of Europe elevated 2 miles would do little more than bring London to the latitude of Edinburgh, or Edinburgh to the latitude of London." He must be sanguine geologist indeed who can expect to account for the glaciation of this country or for the former absence of ice around the poles by this means. We know perfectly well that since the glacial epoch there have been no changes in the physical geography of the earth sufficient to deflect the pole half a dozen miles, far less half a dozen degrees. J. Evans, a geologist, suggested that the astronomers reconsider their conclusion on the supposition that the earth is a shell filled with molten matter. He envisaged the possibility under a change of load in the crust would be forced to alter its position in relation to the axis by as much as 20 degrees. And this is what I talk about, how the crust basically floating on the top heats up and expands, right? Is able to kind of rotate as a form of like autocorrect. So as the magnetic poles shift, the crust will eventually catch up, right, through the upheaval of the continents. Sir William Thomson, Lord Kelvin, the physicist, took up the issue and retorted that the Earth cannot, as many geologists suppose, be a liquid mass enclosed in only a thin shell of solidified matter. As the surface, and for many miles below the surface, the rigidity of the Earth is certainly very much less than that of iron. And therefore, at great depths, the rigidity must be enormously greater than that at the surface. Whatever be its age, we may be quite sure that the earth is a solid in its interior, and we must utterly reject any geological hypothesis which assumes the solid earth to be a shell of 30 or 100 or 500 or 1,000 kilometers in thickness, resting on an interior liquid mass. Lord Kelvin showed that if the earth were a liquid mass covered with a solid crust, the solid crust would yield so freely to the deforming influence of the sun and moon that it would simply carry the waters of the oceans up and down with it, and there would be no sensible tidal rise and fall of water relativity to it. The state of the case is shortly this. The hypothesis of a perfectly rigid crust containing liquid violates physics by assuming preternaturally rigid matter and violates dynamical astronomy. Lord Kelvin admitted, however, that a larger shifting of the poles would be possible if the Earth had a solid nucleus in the interior separated by a liquid layer from the outer crust. This he regarded as improbable and directed his argument against an Earth with a molten interior. And I believe it's plasmatic, guys. That's what I believe. I believe the Earth is plasmatic. That's my opinion. George Darwin supported the views of Lord Kelvin, presenting figures to show that the Earth could not have a fluid nucleus. Its rigidity must be at least as great as that of steel. And think about, too, plasma, as it cools and heats, right, goes from like minerals and metals and all of that, right? Even wood is a form of plasma. Thus, the efforts of geologists to explain the origin of ice covered by shifting of the poles founded on the calculations of the mathematicians. A mathematician made the point clear. Mathematicians may seem to geologists almost churlish in their unwillingness to admit a change in the Earth's axis. Geologists scarcely know how much is involved in what they ask. They do not seem to realize the vastness of the Earth's size or the enormous quantity of her motion. When a mass of matter is in rotation about an axis, it cannot be made to rotate about a new one except by external force. Internal changes cannot alter the axis, only the distribution of the matter and the motion about it. If the mass would begin to revolve about a new axis, every particle would begin to move in a different direction. What is it to cause this? Where is the force that could deflect every portion of it and every particle of the earth into a new direction of motion? And that's because it's magnetic, and the external force is the sun and maybe something else, right? Planet X, Nemesis. Searching for causes in the earth itself, the geologist offered a theory concerning changes on the surface of the globe which, as the astronomers calculated, could have displaced the poles, but only to an extent entirely inadequate to account for the ice cover in the Ice Age. The explanation that appeared best to geologists was rejected by the physicists and astronomers, who for their part could not propose any other satisfactory solution. Further development showed that tides in the terrestrial crust under the influence of the moon and sun, unknown to Lord Kelvin, do exist. Though they are minute, this means that the Earth is not perfectly rigid. It was also found that the Earth makes a real wobbling motion. S.C. Chandler, an American astronomer, explained the wobbling of the Earth as an indication of its being removed from a balanced position. Right, we have wobbling right now. We have the fluctuation of the spin right now. We have the migration of the poles right now. We have crust displacing right now. We have atmospheric changes right now. And we have external influences right now. Right? So, just saying, and this is why I like Velikovsky so much. He had a way of looking at it, and he challenged the status quo, and he pointed out that everything that they try to tell you is just fact, right? And it's assumed because, your fucking textbook in 7th grade science said it's true, it doesn't make it actually true. You planet 8 times smaller than us, but 8 times more gravity and electromagneticity that can do all that. They've already proven a second ocean underneath the ocean we have now. This planet is not a solid mass. Yeah. So think about that too. When it talks about in the Bible, you can't argue with the math. Well, no, you can't argue with the math, and I think the math, math is a universal language for a reason, right? Numbers don't lie, but people do. But you can misinterpret mathematics, or you can make them work for you in certain ways. So even sometimes mathematicians get shit wrong, right? If they don't have all of the components of the equation, then the equation's not sufficient to explain something, in my opinion. But you're right. The math doesn't add up with all the things that they tell us is going on. Not even close. So I actually agree with you on what you're saying. But to me, it's not a solid mass. It is plasmatic. And the Bible talks about how the waters of the firmament, it's separating the waters above and below. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were waters underneath the ocean, right? Or something underneath of us already. It just kind of, it would just reinforce ideas that have already been, out there, for a long time. And looking, and let me see if I can pull up the part I want here. Okay. Now, this is what's crazy. Let me see if I can pull all this up, actually. Let's go ahead and get this ready here. We're going to go to the reverse polarity, 105. And worlds in collision. And if you guys ever want to know, I should start putting links and shit to the books. I'm going to start posting. If you guys are into it, let me know in the chat. I will post the PDFs to the books that I use and read on this channel in the community section here on YouTube and on Patreon. If you guys would actually, if you're interested in reading, the stuff that I read and show on the channel, I would absolutely be willing to do that. So, and I have a lot of books, in case you didn't know. So, and let's go here. Now, alright. Where are we going to start? Alright, chapters 8 to 10. And also in Psalm 78, where it is told there were sent diverse sort of flies among them, the people of Egypt, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. And remember, we were just talking about this in the Colburn, but this is the biblical. Their labor was given to the caterpillar and the locust. The dust of the land became lice throughout all the lands of Egypt, and there came a grievous swarm of flies into all the land of Egypt. The second, third, fourth, and eighth plagues were caused by vermin. The plague of the herb, the swarm of flies, of the King James Version, is translated into Septuagint, or stinging fly, and Philo calls it the dog fly. A ferocious insect is also called a gnat by the rabbis. Psalm 105 narrates darkness and a dog fly. Think about it, dog, Dogon, Lucifer and a fly, just saying. Darkness was sent upon the country, and locusts came, and caterpillars, and that without number, and did eat up all the herbs. Their land brought forth frogs in abundance in the chambers of their kings. And there came divers sorts of flies and lice in all their coast. The Amalekites left Arabia because of the ants of the smallest kind, and wandered toward Canaan and Egypt at the same time that the Israelites went from Egypt toward the desert and Canaan. In the Chinese annals describing the time of Yahoo, from which I quoted previously, it is said that when the sun did not set for 10 days and the forests of China were destroyed by fire, multitudes of loathsome vermin were bred in the entire land. Remember, it said it was 9 days of darkness in the Colburn. During the wanderings in the desert, the Israelites, so this is just letting you know that this has happened more than once and that it's about the same each time, or similar each time. And I think I pointed that out earlier when I showed the biblical timeline of all the different destructions, right? During their wanderings in the desert, the Israelites were plagued by serpents. A generation later, hornets preceding the Israelites under Joshua, plaguing the lands of Canaan and driving entire nations from their domiciles. The inhabitants of the islands in the South Seas relate that when the clouds lay only a few feet from the ground, and the sky was so close to the earth that men could not walk, myriads of dragonflies with their wings severed the clouds, confining the heavens to the earth. After the close of the Middle Kingdom, the Egyptian standard bore the emblem of a fly. When Venus sprang out of Jupiter as a comet and flew very close to the earth. Now think about that. This gives, to me, this is probably actually what happened. I believe that Jupiter ascends. And I wish I had the fucking video. I'm going to pull it up the next time I talk about Planet X. I'll do a part 3 for sure. I'm going to try to do like a bunch of parts and just break out everything I got on this subject. Because it's fun, for one, and I enjoy it, for two. And I want to show you guys the orbital theory of Jupiter ascending, okay? And I still need to do my video on my dreams and visions. That way I can get that out there before anything happens, all right? But remember, it said that Venus was Earth-like, or that Venus was a satellite, a moon of Jupiter, and it was thrown out of orbit. So Jupiter, the king planet, Lucifer, Venus, he was beautiful angel, right? And he fell, right? So slung out of the orbit of the king, okay? And in the, the final conflagration of these alignments, if Jupiter does ascend us and Venus was one of its moons, well, that would make a lot of sense of why it was thrown out if it actually hit the earth, or the Earth's magnetism, pushed it out of orbit from Jupiter as it passed. This kind of gives credence. And then remember, the ancient Babylonians, Jupiter was considered Nibiru, right, in those mysteries. So, and I will pull that up just to prove that to you if I need to. Hold on. I've got another. We're going to actually talk about this too. This goes into the different moons of Nibiru, right? Like the 6 moons and planets and all that, which we'll look at that just a second after we finish this here. So when Venus sprang out of Jupiter as a comet and flew very close to the Earth, Let me see if I can actually pull up the chat so I can see it. Yeah, I'm going to move the chat over here. I want to be able to actually see what you guys are saying. I want to actually be able to see what you're saying. Alright. So, alright, let's see if we can get that a little better here. Boom. Cool. Alright, I'm making it a little smaller. Boom. Alright, man. There we go. Let me pull this out a little bit. Sweet. Alright, so now I can see the chat while I'm doing this, which is better. Okay, so when Venus sprang out of Jupiter as a comet and flew very close to the Earth, it became entangled in the embrace of the Earth. The internal heat developed by the Earth and the scorching gases of the comet were in themselves sufficient to make the vermin of the Earth propagate at a very feverish rate. Some of the plagues, like the plague of the frogs, the land brought forth frogs, or of the locusts, must be ascribed to such causes. Anyone who has experienced Khamsin or Sirocco, an electrically charged wind blowing from the desert, knows how during the few days that the wind blows, the ground around the villages begins to teem with vermin. And this is very true too. There's a specific type of vermin that actually can appear straight out of electromagnetic energy. I'm trying to think. It looks like a spider and a fly mixed. I'm trying to think of what it is. It's something like that's never been found before on the Earth, but it comes from power lines and shit. They're also saying that now there was a second proto-Earth sitting where the Kuiper Belt is, now much larger than our planet, but all asteroids to add up to just one planet. I believe that it was Tiamat. I believe the Earth is Tiamat, or was Tiamat, and that the Earth was, perhaps in a different location, even, could have been in a different location, or, this Tiamat was destroyed by Nibiru in its passing, and that's, what created all the chaos. But I think Earth is a piece of Tiamat, and Earth has Theia, or whatever, the two giant pieces of a planet lodged inside of it. So something collided with the Earth previously, and if the Earth is actually just a dome, like a flat Earth or something like that, it might just be a piece of an old planet. You know what I mean? And it's covered in a dome to keep it, to keep the air and shit in here. Yes, you too? Okay, well, hey, if we look at the story of the first book of Adam and Eve, which, I would pull it up, but I would have to read through so much to just kind of prove that point to you. But it talks about time and time again how Satan destroys the earth trying to kill Adam and Eve, right, in that book. And that's one of the Forgotten Books of Eden series, I believe is what they're called. I actually have that too. You think an incoming asteroid is what left asteroids are what's left of Tiamat? That's a really good theory, actually. It's a really good theory. Those giant pieces. Well, remember, when Tiamat is destroyed by Nibiru, by Marduk, they take her pieces and they throw it all over the fucking solar system so she can never put herself back together again. Right? And King U becomes the moon. Right? He was like the biggest piece that was left of her or whatever. So Kingu becomes the moon because he loved her so much, he was left to circle around her forever watching her. So that shows you that the earth is actually Tiamat because Kingu is the moon. And the moon tidally is locked with us, facing us. Right? And it was placed there. So it's like we're what's left of Tiamat probably. The asteroid belt's the other bit of the remnants, and the Trojan asteroids of Jupiter are probably the debris that's flying off the sides of Jupiter from it ripping through Tiamat. And, in the first book of Adam and Eve, it talks about Satan at one point takes a large stone and throws it on the earth. And God puts Adam and Eve in a valley so they can't get hit by the asteroid when it hits the earth, right? And he puts them in the cave of treasures and all of that. It's possible. I have no idea. I just know we've been lied to so long. I myself have never been to space, so I couldn't say. I'm right there with you, and I say this all the time. I have the same point of view as you, but you know what? I also have the same point of view as a scientist, the government, and mathematicians, and academia, and theologists, and all of these so-called professionals, right? That we just take their words as gospel. Okay, our moon, Earth could not capture. I know that. You're right. Our moon's too big for our Earth, for one, and it's placed in the precise location for the solar and lunar eclipse to where that couldn't accidentally happen. Right? It had to literally be placed there. But they say though that Theia, are two pieces, and the moon is another piece of the planet that collided with the Earth. So who knows, guys? I'm just saying, King U, though, was supposed to be the lover of Tiamat, and he loved her so much, they put him in a tidal lock to face her, and I believe the Earth is what's left of Tiamat. You can't say that. Yeah, the math doesn't work with the moon. You're right. The math doesn't work with the moon. Not at all. So if anybody wants to challenge that one, that's absolutely true, and that's how we know that they've tried to say that the moon actually came out of the Earth, and you're right, the math does not work. The question arises here whether or not the comet Venus infested the Earth with vermin, which it may have carried in its trailing atmosphere in the form of larvae together with stones and gases. It is significant that all around the world people have associated the planet Venus with flies. In Ekron, in the land of the Philistines, there was erected a magnificent temple to Baal-zebub, the god of the fly. In the 9th century, King Hazael of Jezreel, after he was injured in an accident, sent his emissaries to ask advice of the god of Ekron and not of the oracle of Jerusalem. This Baal-zebub, or is Beelzebub of the Gospels. Ahriman, the god of darkness, who battled with Ormuzd, the god of light, is compared to Bundahi, to a fly, or the flies that filled the earth buried in gloom. It is said, his multitudes of flies scatter themselves over the world that is poisoned through and through. And Ahriman, I want to do a video on Ahriman and Ahrimanic beliefs, because that goes really fucking deep. Rudolf Steiner and all of that, if you guys have ever read anything on Rudolf Steiner and Ahriman, and I believe it connects to like Abraxas and all of that too, so, Magus, right? So I would love to do something on that, for real. I think that would be really cool to do a video on that, but I don't know how many people would actually be into it. Okay, so wherefore now again thou Wherefore now again thou dogfly art making gods to clash with gods in strife. The people of Bororo in central Brazil call the planet Venus the sandfly, an appellation similar to that which Homer used for Athene. The Bantu tribes of Central Africa relate to the sandfly brought fire from the sky, which appears to be a reference to Promethean role of Beelzebub, the planet Venus. The Zende Vesta, describing the Battle of Tistra, the leader of the stars against the planets, Darmester, refers to worm stars like wormwood that fly between the earth and heaven, and that supposedly signify the meteorites. Possibly it's a reference to their infesting property. This idea of contaminating comets is found in a belief of the Mexicans described by Sahagún. The Mexicans called the comet Citlalin Popica, which means a smoking star. These natives called the tail of such a star Citlalin Talamina, exhalation of the comet, or literally, the star shoots a dart. What the fuck? The star shoots a dart, right? And think about DART, double asteroid redirection test. DART. Wow, dude. Wow. And then Didymus and Dimorphos, the binary asteroids. Whoo, dude, crazy shit, man. I'm just telling you. Our solar system may be nothing like we've been told to, by the way. They believe that when such a dart fell on a living organism, a hare, a rabbit, or any other animal, worms suddenly formed in the wound and made the animal unfit to serve as food. It was for this reason that they took great care to cover themselves during the night so as to protect themselves from this inflaming emanation. The Mexicans thus thought that larvae from the emanation of the comet fell on all living things. As I have already mentioned, they called Venus a smoking star. Sahagún says also that the rising of the morning star, Mexicans used to shut the chimneys and other apertures in order to prevent mishap from penetrating into the house together with the light of the star. The persistence with which the planet Venus is associated with a fly in the traditions of the peoples of both hemispheres, also the emblems carried by the Egyptian priest and the temple services conducted in honor of the planet god of the fly, create the impression that the flies on the tail of Venus were not merely the earthly brood, swarming in heat like other vermin, but guests from another planet. Dude, the flies, to me, would be like electromagnetic entities or something like that, parasitic entities, right? If you think about it. Those flies very well could be, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen like an orb or a poltergeist or whatever, right, in the paranormal, and people are going to say, that's pseudoscience, and that's bullshit, there's no such thing as ghosts, and no such thing as Planet X, and whatever, fuck you, okay, why are you watching me? If that's how you feel. But if you've ever seen, I've seen these entities with my own eyes, is what I'm saying. And they look like fucking tadpoles or something, but they're darker than darkness, and they can literally attach to your eyes and shit. I'm not shitting you guys. I don't even want to tell you how I know this. I just think it's better not to say how I've seen these things and how I know they exist and how I know they're real. But I believe they're extraterrestrial. And I've seen orbs of light, but these are not the same. These look like tadpoles, like of darkness. And I've seen a lot of them. And they're intelligent as fuck. Yeah, creepy is right. I don't want to say. I just want to say and they, like serpents, like they have like balls of energy with tails or whatever. Well, I feel like if I say, how I know, then people are going to be like, they're going to look at me different or something. So, and then they're going to be like, oh shit, you're evil. But, yeah. I've had some experiences, guys, for real. I've got a pretty crazy lineage, too. So, for real. So, for real. The persistence with which the planet Venus is associated with the fly traditions of people in both hemispheres, also emblems carried by the Egyptian priests on the temple services conducted in honor of the planet god. Okay, the old question, whether there is life on other planets, has been debated time and time again without much progress. Atmospheric and thermal conditions are so different on other planets that it seems incredible that the same forms of life exist there as on Earth, and that's what I'm saying, right? These parasitic, serpent-looking, fucking dark tadpole-looking motherfuckers are intelligent, and I know that for a fact. I've seen them with my eyes. Okay? And they can inhabit the human body. I also know that for a fact, too. They can attach to our eyeballs. And other parts of our body, too. This seems to be my dilemma. What's your dilemma? You can back up John on that. There are things that you won't even talk about because they're so crazy thinking, but I know it happens. I know, guys. Yeah. That's why I try to tell people. People don't believe me. You know, this is crazy. It's like, I get compliments all the time. It's like, you're so smart, but you're full of shit. Right? When I say something that actually challenges reality, they're like, no, but that's not true, though. Yeah, the other stuff you said, that's on track, but no, not the shit that's, not believable. That's just not believable, right? It's like, okay. Right, so that's why you're here. Yeah, dude, I know, that is why we are that's why we're a clique, y'all. That's why we're a family. That's why we are a soul tribe. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And some of you guys, you need to smoke. Fire it up, fam. That's why a lot of us do click up together. Like, I feel like it's not just, we could have some genetic connections as well, but I feel like it goes deeper than that. It's like, the order of Melchizedek. It's a spiritual order, and I feel like we're all part of the same order. Kinky. Hey. Yeah, I'm kinky too, so, that's okay. I've met like my last 5 girlfriends through my audience, so I'm, it's all good. It's good to be kinky. It just means you're not boring, and that's why I can't do the religious stuff, I can't do the religious stuff anymore. I used to do it years ago when I first started, and I got a lot more love, I guess. Made more money and shit, I guess. Because, but I was placating to something that wasn't genuine to who I was. And the more I evolve into who I truly am, the more people don't like me for it. It's like, oh, you read tarot, you're evil now. You said the Illuminati's not all bad, you're evil now. You said everybody's Lucifer, you're evil now. You mess with, witchcraft and all that, you're evil now. It's like, you don't know what I do on my own personal time. You don't know how I really practice anything. And you don't know anything other than what you want to know, or want to believe. And that goes for all of us. For us to ever sit and judge one another's fucking insanity. It really is. You're 60 in October, never been married, you have $2, and you raise them both yourself. You say, anywhere, asking for a friend? Hey, I'm just saying, like we are a soul group and a soul tribe. And I feel like that's why I don't do religion, because I think that most of those people are sexually repressed. You feel me? And that's the whole judgment for how they, that they play on each other. It's like, I'm not going to have people look down on me because I have carnal desires and I like to fulfill some of them. I don't harm people. It's not like I go around, like doing things to get diseases or anything like that. But we're humans. We're humans. And I still have morals and beliefs and all of that. And if my morals and beliefs aren't in alignment with someone, then I won't be in a relationship with them. And as far as spiritual beliefs and all of that, I'm open to what anybody believes, as long as they're not harming children Or I've had people try to sacrifice me, guys. Members of my audience, more than one. You know, there's some fucking lunatics that watch me. You know, a lot of them have actually tried to sacrifice me. It's fucking crazy. You know, I don't go for that either. I don't go for any of that. Like, you know, anytime you ever try to infringe on another person's free will, take their life, wrongfully steal their energy, you know, like, I'll give my energy away to people. It's like, you ain't gotta steal it. You know what I mean? If you're, like, open and shit like that, it's like, I'm open to you. So you don't have to play those games with me. You know, I feel like a pure, fair, energetic exchange is okay. You know, and that's what sex is, too. Those are energetic exchanges, but you create energetic ties as well. And that's why, you know, that's why I don't do all the orgy shit and all of that, you know, like the sex magic and all of that, because I don't want to be connected to a lot of those dark fucks, you know, in that kind of way, you know, because that type of shit has the deepest hooks, you know, trust me on that. I won't tell you how I know, but I know, right, that when you participate or practice something like that, man, you know, you better make sure you're doing it with somebody that's like, you know, a good person, and you better make sure that, you know, you're the only one they're doing it with, because you connect to every person that they are doing it with. And, you know, that's where shit gets dangerous. It's like, and that's where they don't like reckless behavior when it comes to spirituality. Just reckless fucking behavior, you know. And that's why there is a process to be initiated into the mysteries, you know, like, and I feel like that's what I don't like about a lot of groups and memberships and stuff. They'll let fucking pure idiots be initiated into their shit, and then they go around wrecking a bunch of people's lives and shit because they know things that most people don't, right? It's like, why is there no character test or, you know, anything? It's like, you're just going to hand them over the knowledge, you know, and then cut them loose to go destroy everybody that they meet? You know, like, that's the kind of shit I don't get down with. Like, to me, not like the ancient mysteries like Hermes and, you know, if you went to ancient Egypt, Jesus, all of them, like, they had to do, it was a rite of passage. You know, they got the knowledge that they earned by the way that they practiced, by their studies, the things that they learned. You know, they sat at the feet of the master and learned, you know, the teacher, whoever the master was at that time, right? They sat at the feet of the master and learned, and then they took it all and they internalized it and they did it themselves. You know? There weren't all of these, you know, and that's where some of the cultist shit I don't get into, you know? Like, let's see how much you'll debase yourself with humiliation rituals and all of that. You know what I mean? Like, and then we'll have you do it to another person to prove your loyalty to us. It's like, nah, I don't fucking think so. You know, I don't fucking think so. You know, to me, that doesn't prove shit. You know, it proves you're a fucking slave. You know, I'm a freed man. You know, I want to be a free man. You know, just honestly. And that's like supposed to be the principle behind illumination. Is to free yourself from the yokes of death. You know? That way you can experience carnal pleasure without restriction. That way you can experience spiritual pleasure without restriction. That way you can have control over your thoughts and your emotions and all of those things. Like, that's supposed to be the spirit behind it. True enlightenment, not to enslave your fucking self to someone else or some other system. You know? There's nothing elite about that. And this is why I believe that at the end of every cycle, we get wiped off the face of the earth because we don't learn the goddamn lesson. You know, and I said this the other night too, that wow. Well, just keep it real, though. That's why I feel like this is like the balancing of karma. That's what Nemesis or Nibiru is, right? It's the equalizer. You know, a lot of these dark fucks see it as an opportunity to sacrifice a bunch of innocent people to their god, you know, who they serve. But in the end, that's why they're calling on the mountains and rocks to fall on them and hide them. You know, because they end up going right along with it. Kronos devours his own children. You know? And God, to me, is who you make him, or what you make him. You know, there is a dark and a light side to him. You know, if you see God as a dark, inverted fuck that destroys innocence and needs blood, well, you know, those who live by the sword die by it. Those who put others into captivity they will go. You cannot escape the bounds of karma forever. Not at the end of a cycle. Especially a great cycle. Where the veil is dropped and it's now like instant karma, instant manifestation. You cannot outrun what's coming. So it's like get with it or get missing type shit. The crossing, that's right, brother. The crossing. Psycho's pleasures. I mean, dude, there's nothing wrong with pleasure. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, if you want to swing and you want to do all of those things, like, by all means, have at it. Like, I'm not knocking that. And, dude, I'm not going to say I was a swinger or anything, but, you know, when I was younger, I experimented with shit and, you know, single, like, you know, casual shit. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. If that's your thing, be safe. You know, whatever you're into, do what you do. But don't drag other people into it. You know? Don't use it to harm others. That's where I have a problem with shit. Breathe in love, exhale hate. Exactly. You know? But I like to breathe in love and exhale love. You know? I try to transmute hate, transfigure hate, put a positive spin, and I feel like that's where hermetics has been big in my life. You know, understanding the pendulum swing and trying to swing that motherfucker back in my favor, even when things are hard. And I feel like I'm all right at it, just to be real, you know. When I have highs, I have really high highs, and when I have lows, I have some super low lows. You know, but I always bounce back and I always come back, and that's that pendulum swinging, you know, and it's like we get better at it each time. You know, I don't fall as hard the next time I fall. You know, you learn more how to ride the wave of energy of life. And that's, to me, that's the original teachings. Right? When it talks about us returning to the original ways, that's what it is. It's being in tune with the energy of our souls, each other, the earth, all of nature, spirit. That's the original teachings, the original ways. Yeah, well, any time or energy to give to hate, hey, you know what? I don't knock people that do the hatred thing either. I understand, you know. I understand whatever gets you there, gets you there. And some people believe the only way to ascension or to conscious expansion is through suffering. And I'll tell you what, suffering has done me a lot of fucking good. It really has. So I see where people come up with that theory. But do I think it's a natural state of human being? No, I don't. I think we create it for ourselves, and to escape suffering, we either grow or die. You know, it's like doing something the hard way. You know, and even too much peace, will make you lazy, right? When you're indifferent to everything in this world, and I've been in those states. I've been in such states of Zen to where nothing bothered me. I cared about nothing, and too much. So it's like, okay, well, sometimes you need to, to snap out of the Zen a little bit, and you got to defend yourself if, you're receiving attacks, it's like, even though, allowing energy, one of the best defenses against energy like that when people attack you is to do nothing at all, honestly. Just allow it to return to them. Maybe you have anger issues. Well, so do I. And that's the polarity of a good person usually. Dude, when you're a spiritual person, and you're like kind and loving, honest and genuine, the inverted side of that, and especially if you're really kind and really loving, there's an inverse to that within you. And the inverse is usually the total fucking opposite, right? If you can be super kind, that means you can probably be super angry and full of rage. If you're a really honest, genuine person, that means you can be very deceptive and manipulative, if you want to. And I noticed this within myself. I go to extremes. It's like the middle way. That's what I'm trying to learn to do, is walk in the middle and not shift to the extremes. But on a steady trajectory up. Because when all of this flips upside down and hail and fire is raining down, I want to walk right through it. I want to walk right through it smoking a cigarette, not worried about it. And one of the things that's gotten me through all of this is the vision, the dream I had before it all started, Seeing myself there with my children, just looking up at the sky, holding some girl's hand, unbothered. Unbothered. Let me know that whatever was going to come, that I would make it through it, and that I would, everything that can be shaken will, and that I wouldn't be shaken. And I've been shaken like a motherfucker all the way through, so I can see why now, though. It's to prepare me. It was and you too. Present moment, not tower moment. I like that. Well, in the tower moment, is everything falling to the ground? Is the truth being revealed? Is, shit hitting the fan, basically. It's like, you're right. If we can live in the now, then, tower moments, they don't affect us. They don't. And that's what's happening. This is a tower moment for all of humanity, honestly. Think about everybody sleeping or asleep to all that's taking place. I've given up on trying to wake all of them up, by the way. I have. I know those that want the truth will come for the truth. And I know that those that I'm supposed to be around, I will be around. That's who I'll gravitate towards. That's who will be in alignment with me. That's who will gravitate to me. And I'm done fighting it. I've had to surrender is what I've had to do. I got such a rebellious spirit. I'm such a nonconformist. It's like, I've had to chill out a little bit on that and allow a lot of things. And see that, you don't have to always be in control. And that's kind of part of the ride. You know, no one's ever went through this life unscathed. I agree with that, man. Biblical, straight up. I know, it's, well, and look, it's thy will be done, right? And I was trying to do what thou wilt, like without, before I ever read Crowley, I was trying to do what thou wilt, right? I wanted everything to be my will, my way, right? And ultimately, it's like understanding that, yes, we can influence things and have some things our will, our way, but we can only control what we can control, and we have to allow what we can't, and we have to be okay with what we can't, and do the best we can with what we have to work with, and I feel like we can make something out of nothing when it comes to anything, and I see potential in people that don't see it in themselves. I see good in people that don't see it in themselves. I see love in people that don't see it in themselves. And people have criticized me for a long time. Why do you stay with this girl? Or why are you friends with that person? Or, why you continue to do this or that? And it's like, because you don't see it how I see it. I feel like God, Spirit, the Father has placed me where I'm at. And I'm always where I'm supposed to be. And if I'm afraid of something or something bothers me, then I run towards that. I run towards that. And I believe in miracles. I believe in dreams in my life. People say, John, you go chasing love everywhere. It's like, fuck yeah, I do. I believe in the impossible, motherfucker. What are you talking about? Why wouldn't I? I believe I can do the impossible. Everybody says, oh, you can never make money off of YouTube. You can never do it, I did. I did. And I feel like I've affected people's lives in a positive way. But even this is something that I love to do. I feel like I would always do it as a hobby, but, I would walk away from it tomorrow if I felt like a new creative opportunity came along that would allow me to grow in a different way. Like, no matter what it was. Better to chase love than chase hate. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? And what's so crazy? There's a thin line between love and hate, is there not? I found some of the people that hated me the most were people that were in love with me. It's weird. But I'm going to continue to believe in the impossible. I'm going to continue to believe in the unseen. I'm going to continue to challenge the status quo. I'm going to continue to be a nonconformist and be an eccentric weirdo. I'll continue to chase love in every state and country in the world till I find, the one I belong to. I'll continue to give my energy away to people, even when it's not always reciprocated. And I'll continue to be me because I just like being me. And I'm okay with me. And I don't give a fuck who's not. And I advise the same, for you. Like, do what works for you. Do what makes you happy. Teaching and learning and healing and helping and loving makes me happy. Serving others makes me happy. I get no better fulfillment than off of knowing I'm the reason that somebody has learned something or has grown or changed their life, or just, or I make someone's life better or happier, or I please somebody or whatever. Like, I get no greater joy than that. That's what makes me happy. And Psycho Virgo, John? Yes, I'm a Virgo. I'm a Virgo Libra cusp. So I got a little of both. But thank you. I'm not the best human. I can be a piece of shit. And I can be self-serving too. But I always feel like shit when I am. I always regret it. And I look for growth in every area of my life. Like, I want to be the best at everything I do, or I want to do my best at everything I do. I don't ever want to half-ass anything, and I don't ever want to settle in life for shit. Mediocrity and all of that is not for me. It's not for me. And I put, all my effort into everything I do. If people knew how much I worked, they would be amazed. They'd be like, dude, you're insane. I spend like 70 hours a week working on my my channels and shit, at least. A couple hours a day exercising. Like, I'm intense with all of it. When I do something, I do not half-ass it. Same thing with love. I love hard as fuck. In love with my whole heart, my whole soul. And a lot of people don't have that ability. You got to be vulnerable to do that. You got to be selfless to do that. You got to, it takes real passion. You can't fake that shit. That's why I don't do anything if I'm not passionate about it. I'm not going to sleep with people just to sleep with people. I wouldn't be passionate. I'm not going to be with somebody just to settle because it gives me some type of stability. I wouldn't have passion. I'm not going to do a job that sucks, is monotonous. I wouldn't be passionate about it. Like, just life in general. Everybody else to me is crazy. The way I see them live their lives to me is insanity. It's like, you mean you married because, you dumped the love of your life for the guy that, got a fucking steady, mediocre paycheck because you wanted stability instead of love? What? You gave up all of your dreams and your future because you wanted to be some person's trophy or possession? What? You stopped doing what you dreamed about doing, or stop pursuing what you wanted to pursue because, you needed to be a grown-up and get a real job, or, get your head out of the clouds, and, like, no matter what it is, it's like, what? Why do people do this shit? Why do they let other fucking people talk them into doing this shit? It's like, here, I'm miserable, my life's unfulfilled, and I'm mediocre. Come join me. We'll go to church on Sunday, pretend like we're spiritual and we love God. We'll judge everybody who doesn't believe like we do, and then talk about how persecuted we are. We'll put ourselves in tremendous amounts of debt that we'll never ever get out of, just to show that we have arrived in life and that we have, all that we're supposed to have at the age that we're at. And then everything else that we do will be out of convenience, and for aesthetics. And then when we die, we'll already have our funerals planned and our plots made, and, money in the bank because we didn't actually live. We kept saving for a future that never came, and, then our family will say how good of a life we had. It's like, what? Love, Libras? Yeah. Yeah, I do love the way the world is. The world is fucked up, but people are beautiful. And if people would be people, the world would be beautiful. And the world can be beautiful, truly, if you decide to be beautiful, And you're all beautiful, There isn't, I love to lift people up, man. I do. I love to lift people up. And most love to tear people down. I don't feel bigger by making you look stupid or feel stupid or making you feel insignificant in any way, shape, or form. I would feel tiny and small if I treated people that way. I want people to feel beautiful. I want people to feel, powerful. I want people to feel empowered. I want people to know that their lives have meaning and that they are special. That they're significant. That what they do counts. Every moment of it. And that there are more eyes on them than they could ever imagine, even if they don't know it. And that when we die, when we walk away from all of this, I think the one thing we will regret more than anything is looking back on it and realize we could have been the heroes of our own story instead of the villains. Or, we could have lived fairy tales and happily ever afters and stuff, but we chose otherwise. I don't want that for any of you, and I don't want that for myself. With this movement, I've met people all over the world, and we all have one thing in common. We just want to be left alone. And yeah, no, you're right. And I'm the same way. I keep to myself. I don't try to make waves. I don't, I'm not saying I won't defend myself and shit. If someone tries to harm me, I will. But I don't like violence, promote violence, condone violence, or want violence in my life. I don't like to argue and bicker and fuss or none of that. I just want to live and let live. And I want to pursue I want to be prosperous, abundant in my life. I don't like to struggle. I hate it. I hate coming on here, asking for donations and all that stuff. It sucks. But I love what I do and I want to keep doing it. I feel like it's important, even if others don't. I don't know. I don't think people see the value in it. They don't understand, they don't understand that there's nobody like this left. Our channel is the last one like this. I don't know if they get that. And I'm not saying I'm the last one like this. I'm saying us. We. Our. As a group. It isn't just special because of me. It's special because we. How many other, content creators literally know basically everybody that watches? Text them and, all of that. Shit like that. That tight-knit of a community and family. And shares their problems with them and all of that, man. has met them and went out and met them and, went across the fucking country a billion different times to meet different ones. Like, that's what's cool about us. And what sucks is when we do Discords, I used to open the mic up for everybody to just chat and stuff, but, there's always now trolls that come in and want to come, shit up the Discords. It used to just be Discord chats, if you guys remember. We would just chat, like, all fucking night long. All of us, and it was fun. Really fun. And I had to shut it down because people just want to come in now and act like jackasses and try to be disruptive and distract and all of that because they hate what we have. They do. They're jealous of it. They're jealous of it. When you don't have peace and your life is chaos, you want to create chaos in everybody else's fucking life. Misery loves company. And they see that we're happy. And they know that we're different and that we're okay with it. We're okay with it. Most of us are nuttier than squirrel shit, just to say the truth. My audience is insane, but it's because I am. And it's in a good way for the most part. Like the most eccentric fucking people on earth. Honestly, I don't meet anybody like this anywhere else. And it's a cool thing, though. It's like this is an audience full of like incredible minds too, like some straight up genius people, that know some shit and that have been through some shit too and survived and lived to tell the story. Whether it's being targeted by the government or just, drugs or fucking having their ass beat by a husband or whatever it was. Like they've all been through some shit. And people like that's been on the bottom, that's had to fucking fight and claw their way up out of the mud, it builds character, dude. And you can't fake it. You can't fake it. Something real that's in people like that. And the bond, the love, I feel like, dude, the unconditional love. Unconditional love. For real. And it's really cool. And that's what I think attaches me the most to it. Is how much it's done for my life. When I first started doing this, guys, I had lost everything. I'd lost my family, my fucking home, my car, my house, my job, my everything. My world was in shambles. I had just awoken, coming out of indoctrination in Christianity, and then getting targeted by the government, and like my shit was a wreck. And this saved my life. Like it did. To have other people that were going through what I was, to have other people, all my friends and family turned against me, unfriended me on Facebook for the shit I was posting and talking about, church fucking pastors talking shit about me at services. Like, so, like, people don't know, like, what kind of impact this kind of stuff can have for you. And, like, a couple years back, we had a member of our group kill themselves. And that's one of the things that's probably stuck with me the hardest. For real. Because they were a person that they participated in the chats. They donated. They, fucking, they loved me. They were a good person. They loved everybody else too. And the shit it's that hard to be this different. It's that hard that people, it can become too much. And that's why you need groups like soul family, a tribe. That's why you need that shit. And that's why I started doing the Discords and all of that and started trying to communicate with everybody again. I had shut myself out for the last year or so. I was like, I'm done with people. Everybody just turns on me and betrays me, and, like, but it's like, I know what it done for me, and I don't want to deny other people, the same benefits that I got from it because of what a few shitty people have done. And there's been a lot of those shitty people to come through. But we've had people that have taken their own lives. So it's serious stuff. To find out your whole world is a lie is heavy. And when you change, everything in your life changes. The guy was like losing his wife and everything. Like, same shit I went through when it all started for me, but a different version. And a lot of us have moved away from our homes, got divorced or separated from the people we were with. I mean, the changes have been crazy. Changed our career fields and, all of this, man. You guys know what I'm talking about. When you transform, you transform. It's not a temporary thing either. You're never the same. No, it's not. And you know what? The wife, I'll just say this. That it taught me, that was probably one of my greatest lessons ever. Because back then, it's like, that was like 2018. It's like one of the first times I really went viral and all of that, and I was getting a lot of attention. So I started kind of giving little presidential answers, little politic answers to people, instead of giving genuine responses when people message me. And I didn't really read his message, and he was like begging me, to like teach him and shit like that, man. And I didn't see that he had messaged me on like 5 different things, and that he really was in a desperate shape. So, I basically told him like, hey, you gotta teach yourself. I can't be your teacher type shit. And it's like, I wish I would have read the, the other stuff or seen the other stuff to see what type of shape he was in, because I wouldn't have answered the same, So, but you learn, and that's what I mean. Like, it taught me that I don't understand how people can take all their subscribers for granted and shit. Like, that taught me a lesson. Like, a big one. It's not like I took the guy for granted. I loved him. He was cool as fuck. I still remember his name. And his screen name. But it's like, it was just, I guess before that, it was like people were just kind of names behind a screen, and that like showed me like no, they're real human beings. These are real people's lives that we are affecting. And that's why I can't stand all that cowardly fucking doxing and all that shit that, a lot of these pussies come in my stuff and do. And I didn't bring that to this channel, by the way. Others brought that type of fucking culture around. And I've tried to get rid of it as much as I can. And I feel like I've gotten rid of it for the most part. But I brought on a couple different, people over the years. You guys will remember some of my old co-hosts and stuff years ago. And that's what brought all that, And those people literally, helping to dox and target, their soul family, their soul tribe. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? The fuck is wrong with you? What kind of joy do people get out of hurting, harming, humiliating others, or trying to prove that others are bad people? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And if I'm such a fraud and I'm such a sack of shit, then just do your own thing. Don't watch me. Don't be a part of my stuff. You don't have to. You know? But don't come bother me or my people. You know, because this is an environment and atmosphere that's not into all that, not into the judgment and shit. I would let you do a show with me. Absolutely, I would. Absolutely, I would. I would bring anybody on the show. I used to do fucking contests for small creators and shit. Like, I've helped a few of them start. Brandon Dodd, Walk in Wisdom. I helped Angry Catfish get popping. You know, like, so I've done a lot of that shit, man. I mean, he was already, people knew who he was, but he had disappeared for a couple of years and he came back through my channel, So, I've worked with a lot of people. Relentless Maverick, Global Witness, Dave Dobbs. You name it, dude. I've done videos with everybody. So, and I used to do the call-in shows. You guys remember, like, even that, like, people calling in making fun of my dad dying and shit. Like, what kind of shit is that? Like, that's why I had to stop doing those things. Or the guest I brought in, fucking acting like trash, So, but I'm no longer going to, and I'm not going to focus on the bad shit. Like I said, you can poison something beautiful and good by focusing on the bad. The good part is that the bad is so minute compared to all the good. The good people way outweigh the bad. And I just want people to see that there's a true importance to what we're doing. And just by gathering together, we really are raising the vibration of each other in the world. And let's just say we're not raising the world. Fuck it. We're still lifting each other up by being together. And we're learning together. We're studying together. And we're in the chat, communicating, having, a good time together. And that's all that really matters, man. Like I said, this is my church. Always has been, probably always will be. So. Oh, yeah. Damien's done a few shows with me. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I've worked with everybody, dude. Everybody. Over the years. It's been awesome. This has been a beautiful, beautiful experience. I do feel like it's kind of coming to a close, though. I'll be honest with you. It's a real struggle to get support and just, to get through the censorship and all of that. I would, but no matter what happens, no matter what I do next, and I'm trying to do different things, write stuff and, do the tarot and astrology and, just kind of put my technical experiences out there too, like on LinkedIn and shit to try to just see what's out there. But, no matter what, I feel like I'll always do this still, even as a hobby, just even if there's only 5 people left and I'm chatting in a group of 5, I won't care. It's just how I am. So, I do love all of you guys, man. I love all of you guys a lot. So, I appreciate you guys so much, so much, so much. And I thank you so much for watching. Sorry I went on the rant there at the end. I feel like it's been a decent video. There will be a part 3. I've still got so much shit on this. This is a subject I've covered so much for years. And I got so much... and I had to delete all my videos, and now I'm trying to, get my library back up here on YouTube and shit. I want to ask that everybody in the chat make sure to hit that like, hit that thumbs up, and wherever you're watching, follow me, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and please share the link Share it in your Facebook groups, on your pages, or wherever you're at to help spread the word. That way other people can find it. That's the only way I get exposure, is by you sharing. And donate if you can. We are at the start of a new month. Like I said, it is extremely rough these days to try to get up the support that we need to just, keep this going, let alone keep me going. So every little bit helps, and every little bit is greatly appreciated. So I want you to know that too. I see people put little comments, they donate $5 and like, sorry, I wish it was more. It's like, dude, why would you even say that? You know what I mean? Thank you. It don't matter if it's $2. Thank you. Thank you for anything that you give. Whatever you have is enough. So I want you to know that too. So don't feel like shit if it's $1 or whatever. Like, I appreciate it and I'm grateful. And I have so much gratitude for you guys taking the time to watch, for you guys taking the time out to comment. The comments are huge. I wish everybody would put great comments under all the videos. And for y'all, hitting the like and subscribing, and especially giving your hard-earned money, because I know that's not easy, for one. Not many people want to give money to YouTubers. And for two, not everybody has money to give, So that's what I mean. That shit's it's impressive. It really is, to see people that are that generous and that good, that selfless. I'm surprised that there's any of those people at all left. Most people that are spiritual or awake or aware, they become so fucking arrogant in their spirituality. They're that's why they stop watching YouTube videos and all that. They just think it's like, God damn, you don't even have to learn anything. It's like, it's the point of gathering together, It's the point of gathering together. If you feel like you know more than me, fine. That's cool. I don't care. You might. Who knows? But it's the point of us gathering together, exchanging ideas, looking at new theories and new ways of looking at things. Never about being dogmatic, and saying, oh, tarot, you're going to hell, or no, Illuminati, you're going to hell. Come on, man. Give me a fucking break already. Are you still way back there? Back in Judgment City? Because I'm not kicking it over on that block. I just want freedom. I want everybody else to be free. And, let me be free to be who I am, and you can be free to be who you are. Let's do it without judgment, and let's celebrate each other's differences. Right? I want new people to feel welcome. And to see it doesn't matter their religion, it doesn't matter their age, their sex, their sexual orientation, none of it. It matters that their heart and their soul, and that they recognize that this is their soul tribe, their spirit family, that this is where they belong, that this is where they can be themselves. That's what matters. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all so much. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and please support me if you can. I will greatly appreciate it. And remember, Jesus is the truth, way, in life. God bless you all. I love you, and I will see you next time. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Peace.